larynx with it's high time, and it's time to get high. Well, this ain't no goddamn dream. It's exactly what it seems. Wake up today just to lay back down and say, I won't be coming back. Let's call it a heart attack. Give me some of that knack. This is just a final payback. They all flipped on me, took my passions, left me be. When I had a place to sit, goddamn attitude to fit. Talk real smooth where to spit. Things have changed and I have quit. Got nothing to look forward to, but backlash full of lies. You're too late where you're going. This is fate, the whistle's blown. It's much too late. It's too late. You're much too late.
And welcome to a brand new life, to a brand new day, all the way from the wastelands of California. My name is Michael, and I am a mere figment of your imagination. I look forward to once again serve you those sounds from the underground. First-time listeners, turn on, tune in, and drop out. This is a very different kind of show, a place where you don't feel so alone. Let us chase away the light no matter what you at home choose to believe. I do admire you for your curiosity. Live and direct and streaming to you live on YouTube and heard around the world. Hello to you from the future. You can find the podcast rendition of this program on all popular platforms, boys and girls. And joining me tonight, first up is Charlie Robinson. Charlie is the author of The Octopus of Global Control, a controversial and hilarious book that features the opinions of over 500 experts that expose and explain the century-long plan for world domination by the global elite. Then, of course, after the break, the man simply known as V. He is also a host of his own program that covers a wide range of topics, some very dark. Don't miss that one, boys and girls. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me into your hearts and into your minds. Here we are again, on a night like this. How is everyone doing out there? I hope you're well. If not, I'm sorry about your damn luck. Get to see those familiar names in the chat room. Glad you guys survived another week out there. Also, the reception for the last show with Stephen Bassett was phenomenal. That was, in fact, for the Patreon subscribers only. Eventually, I'll be throwing up some clips of that episode for you. Now, enough of the nonsense. Let's get down to brass tacks and bring in our first guest. Charlie, are you alive out there?
I am alive. How are you doing?
I'm good. Can't complain, my friend. How are you?
I am wonderful. This is a fun way. I enjoy this. This is a good way to spend a Saturday night as far as I'm concerned. Talk about some crazy stuff, hang out, and just and get weird for a couple hours.
That's what it's all about, and I'm glad you are here with me, sharing the air with me here. And of course, the listeners out there, I'm pretty sure will enjoy you greatly. So before we begin here, this is your first rodeo here on the program, and I thought we could sort of talk about your life and how you got into all this.
Sure.
And of course, we'll branch out to all sorts of fun topics, my friend.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wrote a book 2 years ago in 2017, but what I kind of discovered during the process of writing it was that I feel like I'd been writing it in my head, or I'd at least been compiling the information for it for quite a while. I'd had I was living in Las Vegas and, working in new home sales during the whole real estate boom, 2003, all the way up. I went on a vacation early part of 2007, and a friend gave me a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins. And I read that book and I was blown away by it, because even though at this point, we're talking early 2007, I knew about 9/11, I knew all that stuff. This book really woke me up to the financial component of how all these, markets are rigged, and how the stock markets are inflated and then deflated, and how it's not accidental, and all this stuff. And it really just kind of it shook me up, and I realized that I was like a part of this whole thing. I was selling new homes in Las Vegas, and it was the hottest market in the world, except maybe second only to Dubai. And all of these investors were coming in, and all these people that didn't have any business buying a house were buying a house and getting approved. And I was watching this thinking, oh my God, they're going to do that. They're going to pull the same thing here that John Perkins talked about pulling in the 70s and 80s. And I just sort of had this awakening to the fact that, like, it's happening on a smaller scale right here, on a local scale in Las Vegas, and it's probably, and it's definitely heading towards a national disaster. And sure enough, it happened, and I got, like everybody, got caught in a bad spot. And sort of my awakening came out of, like, just experiencing this, losing everything myself, watching people that I'd sold houses to lose everything, and feeling really guilty about the whole thing, and feeling like, I know I didn't do it, of course. I know it wasn't my fault, but I was part of it, and I didn't know I was part of it, and I felt really stupid about that. And I kind of just sort of promised myself that I wouldn't fall for it the next time around, right? I would get involved, and I would figure out how these scams were happening, and these financial scams, and I would just I would get out of the way the next time around. So that started me down this path of learning about, what money really is, and the Federal Reserve and central banking. And then that leads you to all these videos. And then next thing you know, you're watching Alex Jones videos, and listening to, David Icke, and reading books and all these things. And so all of this came to a head one day, just a normal day, when I had, I discovered some new conspiracy that I was, like, blown away by and really into. And for people that are that probably a lot of people know what I'm going through. There are very few people you'll find in your life that you can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this. Did you know anything about this? Because most people will write you off as being a nutcase. But my mom has always been very open-minded to things like this. And so I called her and I told her about this new conspiracy that I had discovered. And she said, that's really interesting, and that's really great and all, but what are you going to do about it? And I didn't have an answer. I didn't know that I had to do anything about it, really. I just kind of thought I was learning this. I was getting into these topics and compiling this information, and just for my own benefit. And the next thing I know, she asked me this really simple question. And at that point I decided, maybe I'll write a book, but I'm not going to tell anyone I'm going to do it. And that's how this whole thing came about. And now it's been out for about 2 years now. And the response has been really good. People have called it the conspiracy encyclopedia, the conspiracy Bible. I thought that was kind of funny.
It's a big book, by the way.
Yeah, it's a big book. Well, there's a lot to cover. And then, of course, as you know, it's endless, really. I mean, you could fill book after book with this, but that's kind of how my story. That's how I kind of came into this, was sort of a feeling, it's kind of like an obligation to wake people up to it as best I could, and to do my part. Like, you've got a radio show, you're reaching thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, there's no telling how many, who you've impacted, and how that's going to carry that person off for the rest of their life. And I thought that was kind of a cool thing to be a part of that. And I would remember how John Perkins' book was so instrumental for me. And when I wrote my book, I thought, well, how people say, like, oh, if I can just save one person, it'll all be worth it. Well, I kind of hope to do more than just save one person from making the mistakes I made, but still, just the idea that you put this information out there, and then it can never be silenced, and it'll live out there forever and be spread from person to person, seemed pretty cool to me. And so I quietly wrote this book in the middle of the night, like literally in the middle, like crawling out of bed. Nobody knew. My wife didn't know. My wife found out when the first batch of books showed up at the door and I wasn't home to intercept it. And she's
Ooh.
like, "What is this box?" And opened it up and saw this big fat book with my picture on the back. And
Mm.
she threw me out of the house for 2 days.
I was
to
just
get
gonna
out.
say, yeah, I was just gonna ask you, what was her reaction? How
It
angry
was
was she?
not good.
I could tell now.
I said, "Well, listen, I mean, aren't you glad I don't have like a second family in Utah somewhere? I mean, this could be a whole lot worse, right?" And she's like, "You are cheating on me emotionally by
I,
writing this book."
you know what? I've heard that before. Some women have used that before, plenty of times in my own personal life as well. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Even if it has nothing to do with that sort of
Yeah.
circumstance, they still go there. It's amazing, really.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I can understand, but it's like, well, listen, really, I cheated on sleep, because really, that's all I would have been doing if I
That's
hadn't been
right.
writing this book, was getting a little bit more sleep. Um, but anyway, she started to come around after a while. She started to see that it's kind of taken on a life of its own, and so so she's cut me a little bit of slack.
Well, that's good. At least she didn't leave you.
No, because I was like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to promote this book from my car? Like driving around on my cell phone, sleeping in my car? That probably wouldn't play out very well. But anyway, things are fine, and I think that she understands that this is not a topic that she's really into, but there are a lot of people out there that are fascinated by it, as I am.
Oh, of
Yes, I
course.
wrote a book, but like I read all these other books too. I'm not just like the hair club president. I'm also a user. You know what I mean? I'm out there. I'll do a radio show, but then I'll check out the radio show afterwards. And continue listening to it and things like that. So I get a thrill from doing this because there's so much more to know. I mean, like you and I haven't talked before, but I want to know the stuff that you're into. I want to know what's keeping you up at night, because maybe it'll be the same thing that'll keep me up at night. And I felt like when I wrote this book and I covered 50 different topics in it, I felt like telling people, like, don't get intimidated by the size of it. Just go to the directory, the table of contents, and see if there's a chapter in there. And I gave all the chapters really funny names, but see if there's a chapter in there that jumps out at you, and maybe get into that. And if you like that, then you might think, well, if this is, a lie, if this official story of some event is a lie, then what else is a lie? Because like all of us, we found there's been one thing that has kind of got our attention, and we've gone down that rabbit hole, and then from there we move off into another aspect and another one and another one, and that's how it all starts. So I'm just trying to be like, I'm sort of like the drug dealer with my book, going, just, hey, here, just try one,
Just a
try one,
taste.
try one, yeah, try just the taste of one chapter and tell me what you think, and then that they'll get into it and read more and more and more. So
Yes, and you are the author of the book, The Octopus of Global Control, and it's become quite popular. I've seen the reviews, and of course, I'll bring that up again as we get things moving along this evening. And Charlie, let's backtrack just a little bit here. You are currently in Colorado, and actually, you are from my own backyard, not too far
yes,
from where I'm at.
I grew up on the mean streets of Palm Springs, California,
Well, that's true.
where you had, now it's known for, I mean, back when I was there, it was, everyone from Hollywood still had sort of a second home there. It was really
Yes.
popular. It was a big spring break place in the 80s.
Oh, it still is now.
And it's a fun place. It's got a huge gay community,
Very gay.
which is fun. Keeps the downtown area a lot more lively, because it's either, it's like 1/3 old people, 1/3 gay people,
And
and
that's what makes
1/3.
it exciting there.
That's what keeps the downtown open after 9 o'clock. That's for sure. It's a fun place.
It's
Yeah. So I grew up
right.
out there, and lived in Southern California for 3/4 of my life, and in Las Vegas for another about a decade or so, and now I'm in Denver, and I kind of go from Denver back and forth to my job, and my other job in
That's
Las Vegas. So
Yeah, it's pretty wild that you moved actually to Vegas for a while. I can't imagine living out there.
yeah, it was, I moved in the end of 2003 to take a job in new home sales with a company called Del Webb, which is now owned by Pulte. And so we were just selling new homes in the hottest market in the world, and it was a lot of fun. But like I said, I witnessed some very, unsustainable sort of market activities, things that people camping out in front of my office the night before we were set to release a batch of homes the following day, and they wanted to be the first in line to be able to buy the homes. And you're like, hey, as a salesperson, you're like, this is the greatest job ever. But as somebody that is looking at it, as far as like, is this a sustainable way of doing things? The answer is no. Of course, you can't. It's not normal to sell a dozen homes in a day. It's unsustainable, and they're monkeying with the prices. And so I saw this. So I'm, when that movie, The Big Short, came out, or the book as well, that was a really accurate depiction of what it was like during these inflated real estate markets. And that, like I said, that's kind of what led me into the John Perkins book. And for those that don't know about John Perkins' book, he talks about how the central banking and the IMF and the World Bank would, offer loans to these countries like Ecuador to get them to borrow money to build hydroelectric power plants and things like that. And they wouldn't pencil out because they were never meant to. And then the World Bank or IMF would go back to this country and, use the fact that they defaulted on their debt as a leverage tool to make them do other things like vote certain ways in UN resolutions and privatizing industries. And so I'm reading this and I'm going, oh my God, I'm like a part of it. Not exactly like the IMF and World Bank, but there were normal banks extending credit to all these people in Las Vegas that had no business buying homes. And then when it popped, they were taking back tangible assets, which were the houses, and these people were out on the streets,
Oh,
and so
I recall.
that'll wake you up. Be like, as you're short selling your second house, you're going, maybe I should know a little bit more about these scams. Maybe I should maybe I'm the sucker playing 3-card Monty, and
Yes.
wondering how it keeps, how I keep losing. Well, it's because it's a rigged game. Once you find out that's a rigged game, it leads you down that proverbial rabbit hole.
And Charlie, let me ask you this. Are you a religious guy?
No, I would describe myself as being, like that typical answer, spiritual, but not religious. I wouldn't say not organized religion. Not so much, but I'm pretty respectful of everybody's religion. It's not a thing for me necessarily, but
You know what's funny? Anytime I hear someone say that they're spiritual, I always, the image that pops up to my head, the first image is always like a hippie Jesus.
right.
I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why.
No, I kind of have that. I kind of feel I am more. I'd say I'm more. Not from a religious standpoint, but from a like political standpoint, way more libertarian, and I think that includes my views on religion as well, which is like, hey, if it makes you a better person and it improves your life, fantastic, but if you're using it as an excuse or as the tool to subjugate somebody else, well, then that's obviously reprehensible. So I guess the religion depends on who's practicing it and what it's more always to me more about their people's actions than it is
Right.
their words and things like that.
Yes, I see nothing wrong with religion personally myself. I see, as everyone out there who is religious, I feel that they all have a piece of the puzzle, I would have to say, Charlie.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a puzzle and there's a lot of pieces. It's not the only piece, but it's part of it. And for, but one of the things I wrote about in the book was that, regardless of whether you are very religious or not religious, if you're objective about it, people have to agree that it is a perfect tool to control the masses, to control large groups of people. It can be used in a good way for control, and it can be used in a bad way for control. But I talk
Sure.
about that in the book about how there are definitely some people operating at the highest levels of the organized religions that are not exactly what they appear to be. They're not. Their actions are not in alignment with the teachings that they.
I acquiesce. We could go deeper into that, but of course, I must ask you first about mom and dad. Were they ever religious themselves?
No, my mom grew up in Tennessee, and she said that she got turned off to religion
Oh,
when
interesting.
yeah, when she was in a church, and she had gone as a kid. She said she went, all the way up until I think maybe fifth grade, but she got turned off to it when the preacher told everyone in the church that they needed to vote for this particular guy. And my mom thought that was just out of line for this preacher to be telling everybody how they needed to vote. And she just sort of said, and I just was done with it at that point. So I thought that was interesting. My dad was not religious
Not
at all.
religious. Okay. Interesting. And of
Mm.
course, as I'm interviewing you here and having this conversation with you, there is a photo of you that I have up in the chat room. Everyone can see it. And I'm looking at your face right now, Charlie, and you look like Dan Henderson. I'm not quite sure if you know who that is.
Uh, oh, I'm thinking Dean Henderson. No,
No, no.
Dan. Who's Dan Henderson?
Dan Henderson is a mixed martial arts fighter, and your face right now in this photo, it's a mirror image. I'm not lying.
That's funny.
Look just like him.
I'm looking. Now I gotta look it up. Dan Henderson.
Yeah, you look just like him in this photo. It's incredible. I can't stop.
Interesting.
I can't stop thinking about it now. I'm like, Dan
My
Henderson, what's up?
my business partner in Las Vegas what was an MMA fighter too, so I'll have to ask him
Ah,
about that. He probably knows Dan Henderson, so I'll ask him.
yeah, a lot of fighters are out there still.
Yeah,
Sure,
for
he knows
sure.
plenty of them.
Yeah, that's funny.
Very interesting. Now, Charlie, let me ask you another question here in regards to the whole conspiratorial angle. Are you an individual who believes in every single conspiracy out there?
No, no. I mean, there's some that are utter nonsense. There's some that I really want to believe in. Like and I'm sort of like I'm unsure, but I find like the idea of the secret space program is fascinating to me. I do not believe Corey Good's story,
Oh,
but
Lord.
when I listen to some of the Randy Kramer talking about the secret space program, I go, man, either this guy is a pathological liar and a hardcore, real genius, or he's telling the truth, And so I'm listening to these stories, and so I'm interested in them, and I don't know that I can say I believe them. And we hear about the colonies on Mars and all that stuff. All that stuff sounds really, really cool to me. But do I think it's happening? I don't even know. So it's funny because this was the last conspiracy that I sort of came to in my like the last one I wanted to go really think hard about was the moon landing.
Right.
And I had this frame picture that was autographed to me. I guess my parents got it when I was like a baby, and it was signed by Charlie Duke. And my mom, used to joke with me saying that I was named after Charlie Duke, but I guess I turns out I wasn't, but I had always grown up thinking that I was. And I had this great signed picture from the moon. It says, may your life be as exciting as mine. And it was signed by Charlie Duke. And it's a picture of him standing on the moon. And it was the last one I came to because I so desperately wanted to believe it, but I can't believe it anymore. And it bothered me so much because when I think of all these, you think of all these conspiracies, and they're always kind of bad ones. Like, oh, I don't want to think that the government is poisoning their own people, or I don't want to think about that. But the moon landing one is one that we all want to believe, right? We're like, I like this one, and I like it too. Like, I like the idea. Hey, we left our planet, we went to the closest body. Like, that's a
It's
scientific.
very sexy indeed.
Well, it's awesome. And on top of that, I'm an American, and America did it. Isn't that great? But if I am completely objective, and I had to be when I was writing, I just found so many holes in that story, and it really bothered me because I'm thinking to myself, this dude signed a painting to me and he's lying because he knows he didn't go to the moon, So I have that in my head, right? I can't get on board with the traditional version of our moon landing. I have big problems with it.
Wait a minute. You said
And
you said you found some hoes.
I found some holes.
Oh, okay. Well, what's their number?
Well, I'll give it to you off air. I mean, so I'm like, adamant that NASA is full of it and they're lying to us and all these things. And then I'm such a hypocrite because I also simultaneously believe that we have reverse engineered some sort of technology and that there is a component of our government that is essentially a secret space program. And so I realized that by thinking, like kind of believing one and not believing the other one, I create some sort of conflict, and
It's
I'm still kind of
interesting.
working through that.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to like wrap my head around this because I don't know the answers to how it all works and what do we have and what did we did we reverse engineer something from Roswell, and all that stuff is so fascinating to me. And I think it should, I think it's fascinating, but then I got to drag in my emotional baggage about the CIA and go, oh well, was the CIA using this as a gigantic psyop? And so I'm thinking,
right.
oh god. So it's a bit draining, when you start to dig into these topics. But I've always felt sort of the original question is, do I believe all of these conspiracies? And of course I do not believe all these conspiracies, but there are quite a few of them that are 100%
Pretty
real,
legit.
and there's another batch of them that are probably real and sort of we're working on determining. And I know it's very convenient for people to say, well, if you don't have the whole story figured out, then it's all a lie. But then come back to me when you've got it all figured out. Well, we're not going to be able to figure out all of them. We are taught, for some of these events, we are talking about lots of people having a whole lot invested in keeping everything quiet and spreading disinformation. So we are really going up against the best disinformation agents in the world. It's amazing that we get anything right. So I just kind of I like these mysteries. I think a lot of us feel this way, probably, that we like these mysteries and we want to try and figure them out. And also there's another part of me that is really like offended that governments do this to us, and so there's a bit of frustration there too. But if I take that frustration out, there's just something very appealing about trying to figure out a mystery that people don't want you, some people somewhere don't want you to figure out.
Yes. And of course, I do definitely believe some of these conspiracies, as they say, are very real. That's why people go to jail for them.
Absolutely.
However, I'm not someone who just jumps onto the whole false flag narrative all the time. I feel
Right.
not all the truth is revealed, of course, or presented accurately. I tend to believe it's always a multi-layer issue, and that's the problem. Just like Jeffrey Epstein.
For sure. That's a really good example of it.
It's a multi-layered issue.
It is a multi-layered issue. And I said, right when I wrote about Jeffrey Epstein in my book in 2017, I'm not the first person to the Jeffrey Epstein party, but I'm not the last person either. So I remember saying when he got arrested, when he came into New Jersey and got arrested this, a couple of months ago, I said to people, what I'm going to say is a very bold statement, but I absolutely mean it. And that is that this has the potential to take down the United States government's power structure. It is because he is so deep in this, he is so tied to it. And I wanted to, I was telling people that to be careful, watching how the media was spinning the narrative of saying, he was procuring women and he was, getting massages and sexual, I was telling people, like, let's be clear that he was raping and trafficking underage girls, right? So like, let's not make this into a pandering and pimping case and everything. Like, let's talk about the fact that it was underage, rape and sex trafficking of minors. And, like, let's keep it serious. Cause I was watching how the media was framing it and they were trying to sort of soften it a bit. And it was frustrating to me. So, so people were thinking about, well, oh, he's doing this with underage girls. He's just a pervert. And you talk about layers, like, well, there's another layer, which is he was recording this and this was blackmail. And then there's another layer, which is that,
that's wild.
Where did his money come from? And, and is he running, Is he extorting people? Is he running money laundering operations? Is he running arms? Is he running drugs? Why does his plane helicopter tail number have the same tail number as a plane and helicopter that were registered to DynCorp? A military arms contractor. So what's going on here? And so it's a really good example that you brought up Jeffrey Epstein, because there are so many layers, and we're still peeling them back, and we probably will be for years to come.
It's a wild one, my friend. It's a very wild one. Jeffrey Epstein flew to Virgin Islands with 11 and 12-year-old girls back in 2018, by the way.
Yeah, I just saw that. So he was still up to his old tricks, clearly.
That's crazy, and then he got away with it for so long.
And what does that tell you? That he thought he was above the law, because he probably was, and he probably was acting that way because he knew that his behavior would be positively reinforced by the fact that he was not going to get pulled in, he was not going to get arrested. So when people see that, that's more than just a guy that liked to get massages 3 times a day. That's a guy that has the assurances of somebody that is above the police.
Yeah, he wasn't fine. He wasn't Robert Kraft.
No. No, they were in the same area code, but they same zip code.
Pretty related. I think they had a couple run-ins, I'm sure.
I'm sure they know each other very well.
I tend to believe
I'm sure Epstein gave him a call saying, "You couldn't have just called me."
I don't understand how you have that kind of money and you still botch something that simple.
I know, it's so funny.
No, it's like he wanted to get caught.
That's an interesting thesis right there.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how all these things are coming together. And of course, there are people out there who say, well, Michael and Charlie, these girls were of age where they were at. Nothing bad happened to them. Their parents probably knew. What's the crime? There's people like that are saying those things currently right now, Charlie. What would you say to those folks?
I mean, it's all well and good. I have a daughter, so everything is different for me. Once the day she was born, I saw the whole world differently. I mean, it's very easy to say that, but I think people that are fathers would say, yeah, I wouldn't be okay with that. Now, I know that he probably bought some of these girls in Eastern Europe. In fact, probably bought them from their parents for a couple $1,000. It's horrible, but that's not unheard of. And of course, like I mentioned, DynCorp. Having that similarity there, that's a company that has been busted running kids out of
human trafficking,
Yugoslavia.
Right.
Yeah. And in fact, if you watch, there's a video that you can find of Dr. Cynthia McKinney grilling Donald Rumsfeld about DynCorp, about how they were put in the penalty box and he let them out, which is how she described it, and that they had been busted for trafficking children out of Yugoslavia. I mean, and they're still working with the U.S. government, and they just happen to have the same tail numbers as the Epstein planes. I mean, I'm sorry, but there's something there, and what's there, it looks a whole lot like a global human trafficking operation that has military industrial complex ties to it.
Yeah, there are plenty of those sort of elements that do exist. And by the way, in the chat room, Terry Cloth Very Soft says those girls got paid to do that. They wanted the money.
They got paid. They did get paid. They got paid, but they're under the age of consent. So, and just from a legal standpoint,
exactly. I always say, but does it make it right?
Yeah. I mean, the whole they were going after underprivileged kids that maybe didn't have, it was a dirty thing. Like he targeted these girls
big
very
time.
Well.
Yeah, of course.
Under depressed socioeconomically, maybe there's not a dad in the home and they're easy to prey on. I mean, that is just some predatory sort of behavior right there.
People do get manipulated, no doubt. Like I said, I mentioned Jeffrey Epstein. I mentioned, I was going to mention Harvey Weinstein, rather. Sorry about that. I was going to mention his case and how he had the same sort of behavior, the same trying to target these individuals, like you were saying.
Yeah, but it's in Hollywood he could get away with it
Sure.
because for first of all it wasn't illegal as far as the age range goes, and then there's also sort of that implicit idea that you got to sleep with the producers to get the part in the movie. I mean that's sort of known about the movie industry. It's not a good thing obviously, but it's the reality of it. So he kind of played into that role of big fat cigar smoking scumbag Hollywood producer
He ran that
a-hole,
angle.
and that, I mean, he's sent straight out of Central Casting. And so, is it illegal? No. But is it a scumbag thing to do? Yeah, of course it is. And not to mention that Harvey Weinstein has a horrible reputation, even just in business too. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like him. He got punched out several times. I think Brad Pitt punched him out one
I
time.
think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is like, could he get sued for it? I mean, were there actual cases where, I mean, he wasn't alleged to be a pedophile, right? But he was
Multi-layered issue, my friend.
multi-layered issue, right? So who does Harvey Weinstein hire to when he starts going through getting these accusations? He hires Black Cube out of Israel, which is a super secret mercenary spy private spy agency. Uses them to go target the girls that were accusing him. I mean, so he sees this clearly as a war, and he's an arms race, and he's got a bunch of money, so he's gonna go after the victims. I mean, it's just a jerky thing to do, but I guess that's what you get when dealing with Harvey Weinstein.
Oy vey. Also yes, also curious about your take on one Michael Jackson.
Ooh. Um, he's got the. He's got to be a pedophile. I just can't imagine that he wasn't one. All of the, first of all, we know for a fact that his dad beat him severely, probably sexually abused him.
That Joe Jackson.
Joe Jackson was a bad dude. And so, he grew up with that. Then you take that, even if Joe Jackson didn't molest Michael Jackson, which he probably did, then you throw him into the satanic music industry that's swimming with pedophiles.
Do you think he was
child star?
Do you think Michael was a Satanist?
I don't know about that. I think he was a victim first.
Of course, he was definitely a victim.
I think he then later displayed, unfortunately, typical victim behavior.
That was a messed up family. That was just a terrible family. If you can recall, there were interviews with LaToya Jackson at the time as well. I'm sure she must have been misled a bit. I'm sure she was enticed by the money, by the ex-husband. She got the living hell kicked out of her as well. But yeah. I feel like there was some definite truth that she was speaking in some of those interviews. I don't think that was just some sort of made up lie.
I got the feeling I agree with you 100%. I saw those videos where she talked about him. She's saying Michael was molested. This is what we've had it up to here with his behavior with these kids and everything. And I'll tell you what, you weren't there. I wasn't there.
Yeah, I wasn't there. You weren't there, and we weren't both on the Titanic, but
right. But I saw what appeared to me was she seemed to be telling the truth, and it seemed heartbreaking. And I know they're all actors and actresses in that family and everything, and I get it. But I believed her. I believed her when she said that he had a problem with that, and now that was before I even I came to that opinion before I even had any idea about how dirty the music industry was. And now you read more and more about that.
Greasy.
Satanic. And I'm like we talked about, I'm not religious, so if I say something is satanic, it's not my go-to insult. It's right. Sort of like in this particular case, I mean that the Hollywood scene is run by Satanists and Luciferians and these people that are into some really dark stuff, and that's that's becomes evident when you take a step back and look at these, like a halftime show with all this satanic ritual symbolism and the music videos for all the real popular stars. It's not conspiratorial. I mean, you don't really have to get your tinfoil hat firmly strapped in. You can just be objective about it and say, sure are a whole lot of satanic images showing up in all these videos. Like, what's this all about? There sure are a lot of people covering one eye in every picture.
It is a little odd, right?
Something to it. I mean, is it are they fully in control and absolutely running Hollywood? I don't know. But there's clearly some influence, some very strong influence, that if you are in that club, you tend to do very well in the music industry, television industry, and big business as well. So there's something going on there.
And after having this sort of discussion with you, I do want to bring up the whole Me Too movement. After having said all that, do you believe these women who have come forward and made these allegations?
Oh, I mean,
multi-layered issue yet again.
Yeah, I mean, I it's hard to blanketly say I believe all women. I understand that in some cases
you don't believe all women. I'm shocked.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it on a case by case basis. How about that, right? So, I believe that if you've legitimately been sexually assaulted, it's got to be unbelievably traumatizing, and to come out is brave. And if that's what's really happening, then they deserve a lot of credit. If you're faking it, then you're a reprehensible human being, and that's just some bad karma that'll come your way. And of course, you're going to probably find those people that parachute into these situations and fake it, and maybe try to tarnish the whole movement itself. I am not in favor of people being abused or injured, whether they're men or women. It doesn't matter. I don't have to get especially outraged because it's women.
Some men have been raped. Some men have been raped, believe it or not.
I mean, Terry Crews came out and talked about that. And if you know who Terry Crews is, I mean, he does not look like the type of guy that would get raped. He looks like he'd be doing the raping.
He doesn't look very rapeable.
No, he does not. And he talked about how that had happened with, I think it was an agent. And that was really scary. That was something I was not expecting. I felt really bad for him.
You do have to feel, I'm laughing, but I do feel terrible about this because it's their livelihood.
Yeah. And especially him.
And too, when you, Charlie,
to be honest about something as personal, and how that doesn't really seem to happen all that much to men. So there might be an additional stigma there. So a lot of credit to him for coming out and saying that. I mean, it's one of those things where you go, if someone says, do you believe him? Like, I don't know why you'd lie about this.
Right.
I don't know why you would think that this would help your career or anything. So I'm sort of inclined to believe the guy just by the fact that that'd be a hell of a lie to tell.
Yeah, poor guy.
Poor guy. Poor anyone that's had to do that. I mean, I understand that. Like, you want to get, you go to Hollywood. You go to an audition. There's 100 people there. You want to stand out, and you might feel the need to, try and do what you need to do to start your career. I bet that I can imagine that would be, some people there'd be a lot of pressure there. For psychopathic people, they'd be like, sure, I'll do it. I don't care. I have no problem doing it. So. You're in a
well, they're willing to sell their soul, no doubt. And of course, if they're going to go that far, they are definitely going down the route of becoming a quote unquote method actor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So
that's pretty tasteless, but that's the truth.
Yeah, it is. And it's a dirty business. And that's part of what I think it's been able to survive as long as it has in that industry, is because people just sort of say, well, look, I mean, you kind of don't act too surprised. You are coming to Hollywood,
right?
What did you think was going to happen? It's dirty, and so it's kind of gotten away with it for a long time.
No, that's true. It's like a woman that's wearing a very revealing dress, and she gets angry at you for staring at her.
Right. Yeah.
Same thing here.
And I can understand, like, there's the Me Too movement, and you just want to say, all right, well, let's protect people that are, legitimately being hurt. I don't have a problem with that. But then you swing the opposite end of the spectrum, and now you've got to have safe spaces. And you see that video from the Democratic Socialist Convention where nobody can clap. They have to do jazz hands because they're afraid of triggering people. And I look at all that stuff and I go, all you people, all you 100 gender people, all you people, you're crazy. You're out of your minds. You need to stop talking and go away. You're embarrassing yourself. So I'm not going to call someone Zim or Zur or play that game. This is nonsense. These are crazy people. They do not deserve attention. They need to be mocked and shunned and
yes,
discarded.
These are the same folks who don't take score in their children's sports teams or activities, right?
Right. And let me just be clear. If you are a transgendered person, that has got to be a very terrifying way to go through life. It's got to be very confusing when you're a kid and you have all this uncertainty of school in general being difficult. Then you throw that onto it. I can't even imagine
a lot of stress for kids. There's a lot of stress nowadays, Charlie, for kids now. It's sad.
And I have a ton of empathy for people that are going through that. But there is a point at which it's gone way past that. It's gone into Crazyville, where everybody's got, you can be non-binary and pansexual,
yes.
and it's like, okay,
asexual.
I'm this,
there's so many. There's
53 of them according to Facebook.
Oh my Lord.
And now I just read that now that it's over 100. So it's turning into sort of a parody of itself. I don't know that people are taking it seriously. And the problem is that there's a small group of people that are transgendered that are scared and terrified legitimately. And all these people are kind of debasing that whole movement. They're really sort of making a mockery out of it right now at this point. And because there is a percentage of transgendered people, and when you see them, out in public, you kind of do a double take. And I'm sure that there are some small-minded rednecky people out there that take that a step further and act like jerks to them. And it's not the right thing to do. But if you just go by the media focus, if you just go by what you hear or you read online or hear on your news, you would think that half the population was transgendered and that it was a contagious disease that's spreading, that because it is all that is being talked about in the media. And you just kind of have to look. People are going, where did this come from? This doesn't feel organic to me. This feels really contrived. Like all of a sudden it's everywhere. And I don't, what is going on here? It just seemed
that's confusing.
It's half of 1% of the population, but it gets disproportionate news coverage. So that, to the point that you would think that, my point is that you'd think that half the people had it,
right? Because
it's all over the place in the news and I'm just watching it, and I'm watching this. It looks like social engineering to me. It looks like a fake event, and I'm fascinated by it, and I'm just interested to see where it goes. But I think that there's some legitimate people that need to be protected, and then I think the vast majority of the rest of them are just yahoos that want to go put on a banana hammock and go march down the street in combat boots and a leather hat because they think it seems cool. So I think there's just a bunch of goofballs out there that are kind of muddying up this whole movement.
Well, I agree with you strongly on that assessment of yours. And of course, earlier in the beginning of the program, I said I had read the reviews, and there was one comment that I saw that this gentleman, this very nice gentleman out there, he gave you a 1-star review just for you. And
oh, that's nice of him.
Yes, and I quote, and this is the work of someone, this is what he says, and I quote, "This is the work of someone who fails to employ logic or reason." And, Charlie, I want to ask you, are you going to let him style and profile on you like that, Charlie?
I think that everybody is entitled to their opinion. I thought that the book was filled with logic. I mean, that's kind of the whole point. Is like, let's take a logical look at this stuff.
He just seems like a hater now.
I think it did seem like somebody that didn't quite get it, and that's okay.
Gotta
I'll
love the
tell you
internet,
what,
though. You gotta love the internet, though, Charlie.
you have to get thick skin
Word.
if you're gonna survive out here in the public. That being said, though, I think the book still has over a 4-star rating, which is pretty good. So you're gonna get that person that doesn't have a sense of humor. The thing about it that's a little bit unusual for a book that deals with so many serious topics is the fact that I put as much humor in it as I could. It actually turned out to be quite a funny book. I put quotes in it from over 500 different people that had some sort of role in these important events. And of course, you get people like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and Bushes and Clintons and Obamas and all that. But I also put a lot of George Carlin in there. I put a lot of Bill Hicks, Joe Rogan, guys like that saw the world a little bit differently, and they were able to call out some of this insanity. And that's so, the guy saying that I needed to get some logic. Well, when you get in the book and you start reading George Carlin, that's logic right there. Right? George Carlin should be taught in school. Kids should have to watch his videos in high school because it comes across like half of it is comedy and half of it is a very accurate history lesson. It's so funny. So I decided that I wanted that in there. I wanted people to read. I want you to read some Carlin. I want you to hear how much sense he was making. And then at the very end, realize that he said this in 1982. And you're like, oh my God, he was so far ahead of his time.
He was ahead of the game.
Totally. So
it's too bad. It's too bad we don't really have too many comedians like that anymore. The only great standout I think that we currently have right now is probably just Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle, yeah, he's done a good job. My buddy went and saw him in LA, and my buddy's Chinese, and he was sitting in the front row, and Dave said, like, pointed to him and said, "You're having a good year. Your people are having a good year with Crazy Rich Asians." And he kind of nodded. He goes, "What's your name?" And he said, "Brian." He goes, "Doesn't sound Chinese to me."
I thought Asians always had a great year.
Right, exactly. But he was specifically referencing that the movie Crazy Rich Asians. So Chappelle's great. He comes out, starts talking the truth, and what do? They give him a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Well,
right.
that's a very telling statement. Now that are we politicizing our movie ratings too? Like, where does this end?
It never does end. And of course, all this time as we were talking, I had more visuals in my head, but this time of Bill Clinton dressed in Monica Lewinsky's blue dress.
Yes, that is a great,
very sexy Bill Clinton, right?
Yeah. What do you think that was all about? Do you think that was?
I think it's more of an artistic sort of thing. Perhaps it was something humorous the artist came up with, or who knows. These artists, you never know what's going on through their head, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty damn funny, and kind of funny but really weird at the same time.
It had, well, what someone, this wasn't my theory, but it's a theory that I heard, and there's two paintings. There's Bill in the blue dress, and then the second painting is of George W. Bush sitting cross-legged in front of his desk in the Oval Office, holding two airplanes, and there's two piles underneath that, which are like big Jenga blocks. So it's as if he had built up two buildings and then crashed these toy airplanes into the buildings, right? And so the artist did both of those. And the theory that I heard was that this was, these were sort of trophy paintings to show that the Mossad had gotten Bill Clinton
Uh-oh.
back in the Monica Lewinsky days. They had the goods on him then, and that the Mossad also had the goods on George W. Bush on 9/11, and that both of these paintings were more to symbolize, as Epstein with Mossad ties would have had, sort of, hey, look at the two paintings I have of my guys.
That's pretty fascinating. I didn't think of it that way at all.
I heard. I mean, I didn't come up with it, but I heard it, and I thought, ooh, there's a good rabbit hole to go dig down.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Nuts.
By the way, do you dislike Bill Clinton or do you like him? Where do you stand?
I dislike Bill Clinton. I think that what he did to the black community was reprehensible. How he put on sunglasses and went on Arsenio Hall and played saxophone, and they thought he was the coolest dude they'd ever seen, and they all went out and voted for him. And then he passed his omnibus crime bill and put all of them in prison on extended sentences for crack cocaine while he himself was importing cocaine through Arkansas. I think Bill Clinton should be in a prison cell with his crazy wife, and the two of them should be away from the rest of society. I think they are maniacs, and the fact that they walk the streets freely,
it's pretty outrageous.
Crazy to me.
Yes,
it's
of course.
Crazy.
Of course, you are referring to Mena, Arkansas, and the drug trafficking that was going on there. And Bill claims that he had no involvement, but come on now.
They're putting out movies. The American Made was about Barry Seal flying in and out of Mena, Arkansas.
Great film.
Tom Cruise played him. Like, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. Okay, this was the CIA was running cocaine into Arkansas. This is George H.W. Bush, that psychopath. They were running cocaine in through Mena, Arkansas, while Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, and that was how he became a made man. Bill Clinton ran cocaine for the CIA. That's how he became the president.
He's a wild man, by the way. That Bill Clinton, what he did in the Oval Office, that is pretty rock star-ish in my opinion, but obviously a bad man.
I met his brother, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I was bartending. I lived in Redondo Beach, California, and I was bartending, and Roger Clinton came in one night while I was
Roger has been
and had a drink, and we watched a Virginia basketball game together. He was totally cool. He was a very nice guy.
I'm pretty sure he's a nice guy, and of course, they let him off the hook as well.
They certainly did.
Good guy, though. I'm sure he's a nice guy. That's the thing about Bill. I don't exactly hate him on a personal level. I can relate to some of the bad things he's done, but of course there are other things he's done that I can't relate to either. But on a human sort of level, I kind of find it hard to hate anyone, really.
Yeah, I just wish he hadn't. I mean, I just think he was a big phony.
Of course.
If you've ever watched that video,
he's a politician. First of all, he's a politician. Of course, he's a phony.
He's just a bit. Yeah, he's just. He had that whole rap where he's like, "Hey, I'm just Bill. I'm just gonna go jogging into McDonald's," and people are like, "Oh my God, I love this guy. This guy is the greatest." And hey, yeah, maybe he's gonna get a little side action, and who can blame him? Hillary's such a
look at that,
and
yeah.
And so he had this kind of lovable side to him, but now I understand.
But he's greasy, though.
They're a slippery family.
Yeah.
They're very smart. They're very calculating and very dangerous, and they will be remembered. Unfortunately,
for
a very long time.
How history will remember them. That's one of the most interesting things and most interesting aspect of all of this. There will definitely be lots of books that come out and document a lot of the truth that went on once both of these, I even hate to say this, but once they go to the graves, that's when you'll start seeing the information revealed.
Yeah.
And same with a lot of presidents that are still currently alive as well.
Yeah, and we saw that in the UK with guys like Ted Heath. That was when he died, it came out, what a notorious pedophile he was, and same with Jimmy Savile too. It was
another
freak. It was a known secret. Everyone in the industry knew it. for Johnny Rotten's on the record being interviewed in 1977 talking about it, saying that Jimmy Savile is diddling kids and stuff like that. But then it always happens that it sort of gets held under wraps until they die, and then at that point then it gets out. So who in our United States world, who's going to get the Jimmy Savile treatment once they die? I thought it was going to be George H.W. Bush, because he was a notorious pedophile and a reprehensible human being.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Right, yeah.
I don't want you to get sued now.
Okay. Yeah. I was waiting for all the stories about him to come out, and I guess the only thing I'm thinking is that because there's a George W. Bush, that maybe out of respect they've kept it hidden, but that's a bad man.
Wolf, yeah. Only time will tell, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And another random question for you here: how do you feel about Tom Brady kissing his kids on the mouth? I have no kids myself, but I wanted to ask you, as a parent, are you kissing your kids on the mouth, Charlie?
I have an 8-year-old daughter, and yeah, she gives me a kiss on the lips. Yeah, it's very sweet.
And how old are you going to cut that off?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Because now Tom Brady, I'm seeing he's also putting powder and towels down center's pants to avoid wet, sweaty footballs. he's a bit of a freak, right? Tom Brady.
Yeah, they're. I met Tom Brady. You know what? I met Tom Brady right after
he seems like such a nice guy, though.
He didn't say a word to me, frankly. I met him right after the ESPY Awards, after he'd won. This was 2002, so he just won his first Super Bowl, and we were sort of standing in a group at this after party, and I knew who he was, but obviously I didn't think he would be, turn into this gigantic star that he's turned into. It's he's pretty polarizing. He's on a team that does really well every year, and
he's pretty loved.
And he's good looking, and he's married to a great looking woman who makes more money than he does.
I don't know about that.
There's a lot to be jealous of. I mean,
well, Charlie, I think I have to disagree with you on the wife there. I don't think she's nothing to brag about, if you know what I'm saying. Come on, Charlie. You could do better than that, Charlie. Charlie, you look like Dan Henderson. You could pull in something a lot better.
Oh, Tom. Well, I think there's a lot of reasons to give Tom Brady a hard time. He's done a good job of staying out of.
He's a good guy.
For the most part, he's done a good job of staying out of controversial topics. They all tend to get that. I actually own a company with a buddy of mine. We do media training for pro athletes, so we get guys ready for the draft and get them ready for dealing with the media when they become pros. So we have these conversations with the guys, and we tell them, like, okay, there's some things you just don't want to say in the press.
So of course not.
Leave it at home. If you're smart, you'll stay out of it.
Well, you got to stir the pot somehow.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to minimize that stuff on our end. We want our guys to we don't want to get phone calls in the middle of the night that one of our guys has gotten a DUI or something.
No.
Like that.
Yeah, you don't want to have another
issue a statement like, let's.
Yeah, the Patriots. There's always a teammate there that's troublesome. Look at Aaron Hernandez.
They get them on course. We'll see how. I don't know if you can mix Josh Gordon and Antonio Brown together. Seems like a dangerous combination. We'll see how it plays out this year.
We will, and of course, for those that don't know, you are in Colorado, and I wanted to talk to you about marijuana. And your thoughts and opinions right now. We're having lots of these stories come out about the vaping illness. And some people are blaming the oil, the THC oil, the wax. And of course, some people are blaming the nicotine aspect of it with the flavored tobacco. And I got to be honest with you, back, I think it was 2013 or 15, when it really started to get really, really popular, the e-vapes. And I took a hit of one from a friend of mine, and right away it irritated my throat. And that's when I knew, okay, this is going to be dangerous, I sort of thought. And around that time, that's when the whole medical marijuana issue was really being pushed out here in California. And I instantly thought, once this gets, I guess you could say, legal for recreational use, that's when these other corporations are going to muddy the waters and incorporate all these sort of pesticides. And years later, it seems like people now are starting to get sick. And now, Charlie, I'm wondering if this was such a good idea.
Well, I like that. I like that they legalized marijuana. It's ridiculous that it was illegal for so long, and and I live in right outside of Denver. This was the first place to get it. The stores are fantastic. They're really well done. They do a tremendous amount of security. You have to scan your driver's license to get in with a person, and they have you on video and everything. I mean, it's like a well-run organization, and I am always surprised at the people I see coming and going. I see, because I drive right by one to take my daughter to school, and you see people that are like 70-year-old ladies and it's not as businessmen, construction guys come in, buying, whether it's pot, weed or CBD or vape. So it's crazy to see the cross section of people. I sort of assumed when they were opening these that it was just going to be a bunch of stoner kids hanging out hanging out in front of it, and that wasn't the case at all. They look like Apple stores on the inside. They're really well done and so professional and I don't know. So the whole vaping crisis right now, to me personally, it looks like an effort by the cigarette industry to try and take out their competition. It seems a little bit coordinated, that all of a sudden it's like, well, we understand that vaping, I mean, I think everybody looks at it and kind of jokingly says like, oh, your ears are definitely going to fall off in like 10 years, and I think it's always kind of been that sort of a joke. It doesn't, there's got to be some sort of price you pay for it. But then the fact that all of a sudden, all at once, it's just everywhere in the news, I don't know. It's just one more of those things that just looks a little bit too contrived to me.
Could have just been
why now?
Right. It could have just been a bad batch. You never know. And I'm not talking about the marijuana product. I'm talking about the e-cigarette stuff that really does a wreck on your lungs there.
Yeah.
I just tell people to go natural.
Just smoke
weed.
Just smoke weed. Yeah, of course. I get really good gummy edibles there. They're fantastic.
Or that works too. One
and I sleep better than I've ever slept in my life. My shoulder feels better. It's phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about it. It's really kind of funny. I remember being in college. I went to USC. I remember we would have to go like to this gas station on the corner of Pico and Alvarado, and you just pull up in your car and guys run at you from like every direction, and they're like, how much do you want? And you're like, $20. And so I'm used to buying weed that way back in college, and to go from that to walking into a place where they're like, you have to get your card swiped to get through the door, and then there's like 100 different varieties of everything and you've ever wanted in your life.
It's
fantastic.
Pretty amazing.
I love it.
Yes, and of course there are also delivery services now too, which is just more convenient.
That's great. That would have, where was this when I was in college?
I know, that's what I always say.
Stuff that was sprayed with Raid, we didn't know what we were getting. It was no bueno. But these kids these days, they're going to grow up so spoiled where they can just buy weed on the corner like they're going into 7-Eleven, and they'll take all the fun out of it.
Or they'll get molested by their PE teachers and have a relationship and even impregnate the teacher.
Yes.
That's another
crazy world.
That's another weird thing, Charlie. And I'm sure as a parent, you have to maybe even consider that sort of thing happening to your child, or even your child being shot at school. Now in almost 20, it's almost 2020 now. These are the things you got to worry about.
I know. This is one of the things that makes me nuts, is because you got a daughter, Charlie. Everything restarted for me when my daughter was born. Everything, like the clock reset, right? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, now it's not just like, hey, I'm 45 or 40, now I'm 46. what do I have? Another 40 years left? I'm halfway out the door already, right? But when you have a kid, then the whole clock restarts.
Everything
You're like, all right,
changes,
fine.
right?
Well, now I gotta like make sure that the world is good for her, and that's going to be 80 years. So all right, maybe I need to get my act together, and whatever. So
Yeah, that's another thing that, again, I have no kids, but that's something that I think about sometimes, for the parents out there. And with all these mass shootings going on, Charlie, I'm sure you probably contemplated that sort of situation already in your head.
well, I drive right past Columbine
Oh
High
my
School
God, I was just gonna
every day
say,
to
oh
school.
yes, I was just
Yeah,
gonna say
from where
Columbine, right?
yeah, from where my house is.
Wow,
So that is you know this it's a topic that has oh boy, you want to talk about layered. There's a lot
multi-layered.
there, but just on sort of a surface layer, like we've got to do a better job of taking care of some of the mental health aspects that some of the kids have. We need to be aware of it. I am not somebody that believes that all of these shootings are as they appear. In fact, I think that many of them are very contrived and possibly even staged. But there are kids in this country that are, being a kid and being in high school is just difficult under the best of circumstances. There's a lot of kids that are dealing with other stuff,
Right.
homelessness of their parents or drug addict parents and things like that. And, they can have a really extra difficult time in high school and snap and be part of a school shooting. Now, in the case of Columbine, the two kids just seem like jerky kids, they just
Right.
seem like kids that just wanted to be, little pricks and kill all their friends. I mean, they seem like horrible people, but I think taking them out of the equation, I think there's a bunch of people that are just very troubled and scared and mentally unbalanced. And, unfortunately, that's, I think, not getting better.
Yeah, these
It
school
seems like
shootings
it's only getting
almost,
worse.
right, these school shootings almost have become the new normal.
Yeah, and then the media sort of sort of propagates this thing. They talk about it over and over and over again, and then some kids get it in their head that, well, I might not be popular at school, but if I shoot up a school, then I'll be popular with it. Like everybody will know
Yeah,
my
that's
name, not just in school, but in the world, And so then they get these sort of delusions, and that fuels more copycatting.
And that's what happened right after the Columbine shooting. There was a string of copycat shooters, indeed.
Yeah, these things. This is the byproduct, or this is what happens when you have a television-based society like we have. You see it on TV, it becomes real, it becomes bigger than real, it becomes the most important thing, and then you have kids, copying what they see on TV, whether it's by smoking, which we know is a very effective way of advertising to kids. You just see them either where they're copying by smoking or by shooting up a school. If they see it on their TV over and over again, it becomes something that they want to aspire to be a part of, and that can be very, very dangerous. But that's like the social engineering aspect of this, that the media is doing this, and they're doing this on purpose, that they could be covering anything, but they're choosing to cover this because it's interesting and it sells.
It sells,
and
right.
So we get more of it, and so they want more of it, and it becomes this really weird cycle where we're sort of manifesting this negative world.
I'm with you, my friend. And of course, just recently, the third Democratic debate took place. I'm not quite sure if you even caught any of that. The media really short took it to Joe Biden for his dentures as well.
Yes, I did see that. I didn't watch the debates.
You didn't miss too much. Let's be honest.
This to me is, first of all, it's weird to me that they're keeping Tulsi out. I think that's
very weird,
pretty disingenuous.
I like her. Yeah,
I like her too. I mean, I think she's got some really interesting things to say. I don't think that there's a candidate that I'm going to ever be like, I love 100% of the things that they're into. But
you shouldn't be.
Yeah, that would be weird if that was the case. So, but I really like her. But even more so than that, even if I didn't like her, this intentional exclusion is weird. They did this is the Ron Paul treatment. You remember when they
I
would do
remember,
that?
right.
They would show like these are the top the top 5 places after the debate, and it would be like number 1, number 2, number 3, number 5, and they wouldn't show number 4 because it was Ron Paul, and they would just pretend like it didn't exist. It was really funny. Jon Stewart did a bit on it.
Yeah.
And he would show like, what about this number? What about this number? This number right here. You know, he's freaking out. And this is what they're doing to Tulsi. So it's a dirty trick, and it just screams like, hey, we at the DNC, like, we will do whatever the hell we want to do, and we will exclude candidates if we need. We will steal it from Bernie. We'll do whatever we want to do.
Yeah, they clearly don't want her on, and of course Bernie Sanders did a pretty good job, in my opinion. Even though he's a little bit nuts, he still did a great job out there, in my opinion. It looked a lot better than some of the guys out there, especially Beto O'Rourke.
Oh boy. Yeah, he found a way to make everybody in Texas hate him.
Beta O'Rourke is what I call him.
That's a good one. This guy is just like the rest of them. He's like, people are very anti-gun these days. Ooh, anti-gun. Good. Listen, okay, so how can I be anti-gun? I'll say that I'll take away their AR-15s. That's a great idea. No, say that you'll go door to door and do it. Ooh, yeah, I'll say that. And then you're like, who are you? What are you talking about? What do you do? This is like nonsense politics. Like, who can out crazy the other one?
Yeah, they're nuts
on a particular topic. And you know what's going to wind up happening? And I'm politically agnostic. I don't like either party, but this is going to hand it to Donald Trump. I hate to say it. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I'm not.
I don't disagree.
I think he's a maniac. But I think that Hillary Clinton would have been even worse. But they are screwing around, and they are going to wind up handing this thing to Donald Trump, and they're going to have nobody to blame but themselves.
It seems like it. It seems like it.
This behavior is so weird from the DNC. I grew up thinking that Democrats were like these softer, gentler, like, we don't want war, and we're sort of more inclusive.
No,
and hey, man, you need to get it. And the Republicans were these like, white men in blue suits that were like, kind of racist and pretty Christian and sort of jerks. And what I've come to understand these days is that the left is filled with crazy people.
That's true. There's a lot of nutty people out there.
And I'm watching this whole thing, and I'm just going, what are you guys doing? What is the Democratic Socialist committee doing? Why are you guys having these meetings where you call each other comrade and you won't use the right gender? Like, you guys, I felt like I woke up in some acid trip.
It's very strange.
The left has gone totally bonkers. And Donald Trump and all those guys on the right are just standing there watching the circus, and they're just going to watch it and watch them burn themselves to the ground and out crazy one another. And he's just going to say, okay, 4 more years. All right, we're good. We're ready to go. And then they're going to be screaming, like that lady that they've made the meme about, you screaming, why? That's going to be them for 4 more years if they don't get their act together. But they can't seem to do it.
By the way, Charlie, you forgot to mention Marianne Williamson, another crazy that I do like, though.
Yeah. She's
nuts.
Was just like, she's just I kind of like.
I like her. Though.
I kind of like it when you're a little bit nuts like that.
I kind of like you being nuts. Yes, it's the same reason why I like Jesse Ventura, because he's also nuts, but he's not going to be the president anytime soon.
It's the same reason the first time I was old enough to vote was 92. I voted for Ross Perot because I thought he was kind of crazy and a little bit outside of the box, and I really enjoyed that. But I don't see.
Well, these are these Democrats, like I mentioned in previous shows, they make Obama look like a conservative.
For sure, they certainly do. You know what's funny is I was at Anarchapulco this year, the anarchist convention. And,
wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. I spoke there, and one of the great things about speaking there is that I got to stay and watch all the other speakers.
Very nice.
And it's so funny is that you see a guy come up to the stage in his late 70s, an old white guy who spent 2 decades in Congress, walk into an anarchist convention and get a standing ovation, and that is Ron Paul. And
He's the
I
man.
gotta say, man, he just made a whole lot of sense. I feel like we need a lot more Ron Pauls and a lot less, Marco Rubios and Mitch McConnell's and these maniac warmonger guys that are trying to kick up, wars with Iran. And like, we got to get rid of these psychopaths. They're going to get us all killed.
I believe so. And by the way, when you brought up Ron Paul, I was thinking of his son, Rand Paul, who I always say this on the show too. He doesn't have the same sort of charisma that his father has yet. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I'm sort of on the fence
He
with
doesn't
him.
have
Like
that
every
yet.
now and then I'll say like, oh, he did something like I'm totally on board with it. That's something that his dad would do. And then he does something and that I go, I'm not really into that. So I'm not really sure how I feel about Rand Paul as much. But Ron
Word.
Paul, man, he's just,
He's pretty solid.
talk about logic, right? I wonder if my one-star critic on Amazon would say that Ron Paul was illogical.
Yes, that's
Right? I
true.
listened to him, and he had 3,000 people for 45 minutes, just like totally enthralled because he was talking sense.
He was.
He was talking about practical things and pointing out some real obvious flaws in our current system, and everyone just really appreciated the honesty and like from a straight shooter like him. I just feel like, do we have anyone like that to vote for?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
That's sort of Ron Pauls don't really grow on trees,
They
I guess,
don't. Yep, they really don't. And of course, personally, I don't think any of them have enough moxie to take it to Donald J. Trump. It'll take a special person to sort of defeat him in the public eye, especially in a debate sort of setting. That's really going to be the only thing worth watching, my friend.
Yeah.
The debate when it's going to be Trump in there.
Yeah, it's funny. They found out last time around their strategy was, well, we'll shame him, right? And what they failed to realize is that you can't shame somebody that has no shame.
That's
And
true.
it just didn't work with him. You tried to, you bring up the hidden tapes of grab him by the where and all that stuff, and it
that
just
was hilarious, by the way. Let's be honest, wasn't that funny?
I mean, it was like, this is welcome to guy talk. Like,
that was awesome.
This is what happens on the bus. They were on a bus at the thing, and this is what happens when you travel with sports teams.
Sure. Yeah.
This is the sort of it's awful conversation.
Women
right?
are worse though. I've heard women have these sort of same conversations too. They get very greasy.
I'm sure they do. I definitely hear stories about them, but so anyway, the strategy last time of trying to shame this guy didn't work. So what are they going to do this time? They're going to try and like attack him on his record and attack him on his flip-flopping on things. And all he'll do is say, I didn't flip-flop.
And that's it.
It'll just be even if it's a huge lie, he'll just say, I didn't do that. And that'll be the end of it. And then they'll scream, you're lying. And he'll say, I'm not lying. And it'll just be this circus going on. That it'll just, the Benny Hill theme song. It's that I feel like I hear that in my head when I watch Donald Trump doing speeches and everything. I just hear that frantic kind of circus music. I just feel like this is all a giant show, and it's the most entertaining show that I've ever watched. And it's crazy, and he's a crazy person, and he's made everyone else feel very uncomfortable that they needed their safe space, and that of course makes me laugh.
Sure.
So on the one hand, I love that he trolls CNN and says you're fake news, because they are fake news and they deserve to hear it. I like that he makes people uncomfortable,
But there's a lot of redeeming qualities about him.
But then I can't stand how close he is with Israel.
I can't stand. Well, one of my biggest complaints about Trump was his involvement with Goldman Sachs and, of course, Jeffrey Epstein. I've been saying that since 2016.
Yeah. I don't like a lot of his ties. I don't, so I
hear you.
I didn't, frankly, just on a personality level, back when he was just doing The Apprentice and everything. That's just not a personality type that I enjoy. Like, I don't like guys like that. I think that, I just don't. But so anytime you say
he's a multi-layered personality.
he's an interesting guy. He's a perfect television personality.
You're
And
right.
and the reality of our current paradigm is that if you want to become the president, you have got to be good on television.
You have
That
to.
is just a fact.
You have
And
to,
if
yes.
you're not, and Obama did this. He went through 8 years with just this coolness to him and this smile and
Just
this
killed it.
charisma. And you almost forgot that he was bombing school buses. You could almost forget that he had expanded the wars from 2 to 7, because he looked so good while he was ordering drone strikes on wedding parties, And so I felt even slimier after Obama. You know what I mean? Like, for all the Trump, for all of the kind of buffoonery of Trump, Obama was a murderer with a big smile, and people loved him because of that smile, and they were willing to look the other way while he did unspeakable things. And it's fascinating to me.
It's all about perception.
Yeah, yeah. We let these presidents do unimaginable things on behalf of our country, and it's very disrespectful to the rest of the world, and
very
even to
daunting.
ourselves,
Yes, and of course, Charlie, we find ourselves just a few days out from 9/11, and it seemed
Yeah.
like this year people finally talked a little bit more about it. The previous years, I noticed, not too much coverage. The media wasn't really talking too much about it, but now, as time just passed by, it seemed like they covered it very slightly, but not to the extent where you'd like.
Yeah, I felt like the alternative media was really
Sure.
into it this year. I did a lot of interviews, in particular, just about 9/11. It's such a, obviously it's our Pearl Harbor, it's our
JFK.
it's all those things. It was the most, it was the biggest turning point in the last 50 years for us, and so many people still don't know the ins and outs of it, and I don't mean that they have it all figured out down to a T, exactly who wired what and did what when, but I mean, I'm talking about just people having a cursory knowledge that the official story is a lie, and that there is a whole bigger story to it, and that these wars were pre-planned, and that the people that are in charge of these, launching these wars, are still running this world, and things like that. I mean, I feel like I think the last statistic I saw was that a little bit more than 50% of the population thinks that either 9/11 was an inside job, or the official story wasn't
quite accurate.
And I thought, well, that's good to know that it had gotten over 50%. But then again, I also see that Joe Biden's leading the polls,
Lord.
so I think, I don't know if polls mean anything. I mean, I guess it depends.
That's another thing, though, about polls, that we don't really exactly know where these polls are being taken.
No.
I've never personally knew anyone, or known anyone rather, who's taken one of these polls.
No, I think you have to be dumb enough to get trapped on the telephone taking a poll, and then so the people taking the poll by default are all sort of at the bottom of the gene pool, so to speak. But yeah, I don't really pay attention to any of these polls, I guess, is my point.
I don't think you need to. I don't think they're very accurate for the most time. For the most damn time here. They just don't make any sense. And another thing I did want to bring up to you here was the whole "Make My Day" law that was rejected recently over there in Colorado. It's something I forgot to mention to you, and I'm not quite sure if you're even familiar with what's going on out there with that law.
Is that the red flag law?
It's
we're talking about?
Colorado's "Make My Day" law gives gun owners the right to shoot and kill an intruder, and of course in self-defense, if they believe that person intends to commit a crime.
I feel like shouldn't that just be law kind of anywhere?
I would have
I
to,
mean,
I would have to assume that, but a judge rejected that for some odd reason.
huh? You know, the gun.
Yeah, let's
Boy,
go
that's
back
a
to the gun thing real quick here.
yeah. The gun topic is an interesting one because I I'm not a big gun fan.
Sure.
I don't love it. I don't love them, but I acknowledge though that every mass genocide started first with the arming of the citizens. This is how it happened in Russia and China and Cambodia and Germany and places like this. And so this is when they're trying to take your guns. There is a reason why you're supposed to hold on to them, because it always ends badly when they disarm the public. So I'm very mindful of that. But at the same time, like, I just don't love the idea of everyone. I just, I wish we didn't. I guess that's a little hippie-ish to say. I wish we didn't have guns, but I don't think that people in government should start talking about trying to take people's guns away from them. That is just that is, first of all, it's none of their business, and second of all, like, you are going to really turn everybody into a conspiracy theorist, when you start doing stuff like that. That is going to be very suspicious to a lot of people, and you are going to meet with some pretty severe pushback from a lot of the gun lovers.
Yes, the gun enthusiasts out there, you will get a lot of heat once you start talking about taking away guns, and I think they have a place.
I do too, and I think that they, the point that the gun owners make is, well, look, I'm a licensed gun owner, and I'm a responsible adult, and I'm not a criminal. Like, you're going to take my guns, but you do realize the criminals are not going to give you theirs. So it's going to be criminals armed, public disarmed, and this is going to create more of what you're trying to pretend to stop. And so I get their point with that. I totally get their point. I think that that's a logical way to see it. So everyone's talking, all the politicians talk about gun control. They're like, we want to get guns off the streets. You want to get the guns off the streets from the criminals, but you're not going to get that when you say everybody's got to turn in their guns. That's
right.
The only people that are going to listen to you are the people that you don't have to worry about in the first place, the people that are like super law abiding. The criminals will not be turning them in. I don't know why this is a difficult concept for the politicians to understand. They've got to come up with a different plan. This is not working.
Right. And I acquiesce. Here is another side note for you, my friend. I'm not sure if you are into movies much, but I will watch a lot more movies than I do television easily. And there's a movie that will be coming out October 4th called Cuck. And it's about when a frustrated loner gains popularity as an alt-right vlogger. The online echo chamber turns his fears into a deadly rage. Will you be watching that movie? And what are your thoughts? Did you even hear about this? This is amazing.
Oh my God, man. That is a movie I might have to go to the weed store before watching that movie.
You got to see that one.
That, I don't know, man. That might be just a little too alt-right for me.
That is heavy, right?
That is crazy.
The movie is called Cuck.
Is that predictive is that sort of pre-programming? Are they trying to turn everybody into a bunch of wimpy, like, non-binaries?
I have no clue.
I don't know.
But it's very interesting, and I definitely will have to watch this one. It sounds hilarious.
Well, then I'll get your recommendation from you. If you tell me it's good, I'll get it. I'll watch it.
I'll watch it. Yeah, I'll watch it. I'll tell you about it.
Please do.
Jeez.
It's going to be either the best movie you've ever seen or the worst movie you've ever seen.
Maybe even both.
Maybe even both.
And of course, musicians and movie stars both, of course, have taken advantage of their privileges that they've had being these sort of pulverizing stars. And of course, there is a new guy who has just been Me Too'd, by the way. And that comes from the courtesy of one rapper, Riff Raff. I'm not quite sure if you are familiar with this gentleman here, but he was once a quote-unquote celebrity Vine star turned rapper but I think he was always a rapper, but they worded this thing wrong here on this article. But apparently this guy, he was also hooking up with underage women.
Hmm.
And he looks like a very confused individual. This Riff Raff, a real name. I believe his real name is somewhere on here, and it's a very strange name. It's like horse something, horsed. Yeah, it's a very strange name.
I think I would stick with Riff Raff.
I think so too.
That might be better.
But yeah, that's Horst Christian Simcoe is his real name.
Whoa, that would be my porn name.
Horst Christian Simcoe. That sounds like a porn name. And one Riff Raff, the rapper, quite popular, I guess, in the early 2000s to about 2012. I recall seeing a lot of his music out there. Not that I listened to a lot of this stuff, but I know about these sort of things. Don't ask me about it. And
a little too much TMZ.
Yeah, it's a mess. But yeah, so this guy Riff Raff here, he's also now the latest, I guess, quote unquote, victim of this Me Too movement. Apparently, lots of women have come forward though about these alleged allegations. And by the looks of Horst Christian Simcoe, I could probably assume, and this is just my opinion, that he probably did what they were claiming he did.
Does he look like a sketchy individual?
Really greasy, very sketchy, very suspect. I think it's safe to say that he probably committed these things.
I'm now looking.
You're looking at one Riff Raff?
Okay.
Look at that guy.
Yep. Yes,
Riff Raff. There he is. Wow. Amazing, right? There's people that exist that
just write themselves.
Can you believe that someone like that even exists?
Man, this is like he looks like it's like a parody of white rappers. Or right?
I think that's what he was going for. He was trying to do a parody of what stereotypical rappers would look like.
Yeah.
It's almost like Jamie Foxx, right?
This might be the greatest. This might be like an Andy Kaufman-esque.
Wait, did I say Jamie Foxx? I meant Jamie Kennedy.
Jamie Kennedy. Yeah. Exactly. The Jamie Kennedy experience. Yeah.
Oh my
Lord. This is maybe he's doing a long, drawn out Andy Kaufman performance, and he's like a serious British theater actor underneath. Jeez. And he's trolling us. This would be the greatest thing of all time.
Well, I think definitely he is a troll. Well, for sure. But he's made a career out of it, which is incredible.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe his music's good, but he looks like
I don't know.
No, it can't be good.
It can't be that good.
It can't be good with those stupid tattoos.
No, probably not. I mean, just look at him. He has a BET sticker and a codeine cup. A tattoo or sticker, a BET tattoo and an MTV tattoo, and 2 cups of codeine on his hands, on the back of his hands. Yeah, I don't think his music is any good, but I'm sure there's people out there who do like that. Believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, don't spend all your money, Riff Raff. You might want to hang on to a little bit of it.
Trying to get a photo up for the chat room for those that don't know what the hell we're talking about here.
He just picture George Michael and Vanilla Ice had a kid.
That's actually pretty good. The visuals in my head now.
Yeah.
You've been saying a lot of things, and all kinds of visuals in my head have been popping up.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Now it's in the chat room. Look at that, people. Look at this face.
This guy's accused of sexual assault? No way.
There he is. I mean, well, the most nice thing I could say is he does have very nice eyes.
Oh, that's cool.
He's a little wild looking, but his eyes are not that. He seems like a friendly guy, maybe, but then again, you could look at his eyes and probably think he might get raped.
Yeah. He looks a
little rapey.
Like a classy rapist.
Classy rapist. I could go with that.
Yeah. With Elton John glasses on.
Lord, that facial hair though. It's like that skinny beard looking thing. I'm not sure who's into that.
Jersey Shore. Yeah.
Oof.
I just can't do it, Riff Raff. I'm sorry.
Oof. Those shades though, those are some old school Oakley shades though. Like he's gonna go pitch somewhere.
Like or like MC Hammer's first album.
Oh, there you go, even better.
Yeah.
And of course, and we're gonna wrap up pretty soon here. Speaking of which, though, since we're talking about the music industry, one R. Kelly does come to mind. Now, that's not really much of a multi-layered issue. He was sort of like I guess you could say, the real Michael Phelps, king of the water sports, my friend.
Yeah, that was weird. And once again, who made us all aware of it? Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle
spoofed him and turned it into like a big joke. And I mean, because obviously that's what he does. He's a comedian with his own skit show,
right.
You know, and it was really funny. But what actually inadvertently happened was that it kind of got normalized. Like everybody knew R. Kelly was into some bad stuff with some young girls, and like nobody did anything about it for like 10 years. Like it would kind of, there was a little bit of like a, you know, talk about it in like 2004, then it went away, and then it went away for like over 10 years, and then it came back again. But the whole time it was like out in the open. It was a very weird thing. It seemed to me like, to be honest with you, it seemed like he finally pissed off the wrong person, and then it became something, you know, because it all just kind of happened all, you know, boom. Next thing you know, he's, you know, it didn't seem like he had changed. He had been kind of this creepy guy that looked like he was sort of running a cult, kind of. And then they even had a TV show about it.
Yeah, it was strange, it was though.
Very out in the open.
But I mean, when you have that sort of money, you know, the sky's the limit. It doesn't even matter what you look like. You can look like Tom Hanks did in the movie Castaway, and you could still pull in 9s and 10s, no problem. It's your wallet that becomes the most attractive. That's what I tell many men out there who struggle with lots of things. Don't really worry about what you look like. Worry about what your wallet looks like sometimes, because that will go a long way. It doesn't really matter what you look like. That's always the most seducing thing to a woman, for sure. Just look around. Look at the most powerful men out there. Look at all the sleazy things they've done. You think they got away with it with just merely their looks? I mean, give me a break. Give me a break.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Growing up in Southern California, you know, there
you see
is
a lot of that.
There is a bit of truth. There's a whole lot of truth to that.
It's
you know,
scary,
obviously
right?
Not in every case, but yeah, we saw quite a bit of the sugar daddy life going on there.
No, you see a lot of that.
Yeah, well,
see a lot of that going on. You see a lot of Tinder dates going on, even Grindr, for those out there that are into that.
Yep.
Can't dismiss them. They're out there. They listen to this show. We got some listeners from Palm Springs here, Charlie.
I'm sure. Yeah, man. They're the best. Like I said, they make that town fun.
I had a friend one time who is a homosexual, by the way, a good friend of mine, and he moved out there to Palm Springs, and one day he randomly sends me a text message, and I look at the text message and it's a picture. And once I fully examine the photograph, it is one Andy Dick, and the first thing I tell him is run.
Oh,
run
yeah,
now, run away.
Somebody's about to get molested.
That's true. Yeah. He's gonna get me too'd.
Andy Dick, yeah. And it's funny
that
because
guy.
Yeah, he did get me too'd, but he had always been kind of like this harmless, you know, like the perception was that he was this kind of drunken, drugged out, like harmless, right, you know, ass squeezing goofball.
He's a character, right?
Yeah.
He's a strange guy, that Andy Dick. All kinds of stories about him, ladies and gentlemen, if you are not fully aware of one. Andy Dick, YouTube is a good resource for that.
Yeah, I think he lives in his van in the back of his house where his ex-wife lives with their kids. I think he set up shop like in a van in the backyard. I think he's got some sort of funny arrangement going on there.
You know who else has a show currently right now on YouTube that I like is Pauly Shore.
Oh, does he?
He does, and it's actually quite funny.
he's very well respected in the comedy scene. I know his mom Mitzi Shore owned the Comedy Shore
Yeah.
for a long, long time, and so he was always this kind of goofy guy on MTV. Hey, it's the Weasel, and
Weasel.
all that. And people were like, "Yeah, he's kind of obnoxious," but like in the comedy world itself, he has a lot of respect. And there's a lot of guys that
he does,
that really like him, and it's just interesting because the perception, I think, of a lot of people is like that character that he created on MTV and like Encino Man and all these sort of dopey Biodome,
classic.
yeah, exactly. All these movies that were sort of like
He
moderately funny.
He fell off so hard though, right?
What's that?
He just like fell off so hard.
Yeah, he fell off the mainstream radar, but was always still in that comedy world and still just sort of like plugged away and
the safety net.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're sort of like visible on a local level, but not visible on a national level. So a lot of people thought he went away. I actually went to the Comedy Store one time at this crazy situation where this person came up and said, "I've got an extra ticket to this comedy show. Would you like to come?" And I was like, "Well, who's or where is it?" It's at the Comedy Store in Hollywood, and it's tonight. So I need to know right now if you want to go. And well, who is it? It's Arsenio Hall, Chris Rock, Richard Pryor.
Wow.
And I was like, what? I will be there. And I went and saw that show. And I got to say, I didn't care for Arsenio Hall really before that. And after seeing him live, I was so impressed with how funny it was, how funny he was. And Chris Rock was great. And poor Richard Pryor went up there with cue cards and like gave it his best, but he was sort of at the end. He's like, I know I got cue cards. I'm Richard Pryor. God damn it, I can do what I want. And so,
it's
so
interesting.
that was my only experience at the Comedy Store, and I got to see like 3 people that people are like, shut up, you didn't see those guys. I'm like, I swear to God, they were all like one right after the other in this little room.
Yes, amazing. It's interesting that you bring up Richard Pryor, by the way.
I think I know where you're going with this.
I'm not sure if you are familiar, but I think you are, about the allegations of Paul Mooney.
Yes, I am.
Wasn't that surprising to hear? But I always had a suspicion of Paul Mooney, that he might have been limp-wristed slightly.
There's that video from 1977 at I think it was the Friars Club. It was one of those roasts, but it was back before it was a big, real, Comedy Central type production. And Richard Pryor is up there, and he is ripping Paul Mooney, who is sitting just to his right.
Wow!
And he's calling him Miss Thang, and talking about how he said, the first time I effed an F, blah blah blah, and he just berating him, doing it with a big smile. And you can find that video, you can find that clip on YouTube. It's really uncomfortable to watch, to be honest with you.
It makes sense now.
But it makes a lot of sense now. And then that also goes under this thing called the Boulé Society, which is this network of very successful Black performers that kind of have a certain code, and in order to be in that club, you got to do some devious stuff too.
Right.
And that's a connection between Richard Pryor and all these guys. Through the comedy world, you'll see, that they've got to perform in a dress.
There's always these weird ties to everything.
Yeah, and they got to do this, and you can tell when somebody's kind of been initiated in, because you'll see them dressed as a woman or something, or why is Tyler Perry doing all these Medea movies? What's going on?
The late great Patrice O'Neill talked a lot about this before as well.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, go back and listen to that, because it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
he's another guy. He's another guy. Patrice O'Neill, another famous comedian. For those that don't know, he was one of a kind, someone ahead of the game, no doubt. Someone that had a just outstanding sort of perspective on all things current. If you go back in time, he was right on the money on a lot of things, way ahead of his time. And if you go back and listen to some of what he talks about Hollywood, and just listen to what he says, he's not that far off from the truth.
I got to get into his stuff then. I mean, I know who he is. I've always thought he was funny, but I didn't know that he was one of those guys.
Patrice
That's interesting.
There's no one funnier than Patrice O'Neill, in my opinion.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to check out his stuff. I'm always, I'm always into that. I'm always into
Yeah, check
those
it out.
guys that are on the fringe that are sort of talking about the truth, but doing it in a way where it doesn't make it so obvious. The insiders that are sort of spilling the beans a little bit on Hollywood. I'm always interested to hear their take on things.
If only he could have just put down the spoon and not kill himself by eating. He
Yeah.
had diabetes, for those that don't know, and passed away sadly. It sucks that he died that way. Just like Ralphie May, another guy who died
Oh
similar
my God,
circumstances.
Ralphie May. Have you heard? I don't know if you've heard Joey Diaz's podcast talking about Ralphie May,
What did
telling
he
Ralphie
say?
May stories about how he had Ralphie May lived in this apartment, and right behind the apartment was this place where people could leave like classic cars, sort of like a pay to store them there. And that one of the guys that kept his car there was Matt McConaughey, and Matt
Oh,
McConaughey would be working on his car out there, and Ralphie May would be in his apartment where Matt McConaughey couldn't tell who it was or where he was going, and he would just berate him with critiques about his acting in his movies for hours
Nice.
on end. Every time Matt McConaughey came, he would just open his
That's what
window
you're
and
supposed
just
to do.
start ripping on him, and he was recording it and things like that, and it was just this hilarious story about Ralphie May doing that, and that made me love him when I heard that story, because that is just something that's so funny. He knows that nobody's really going to get a chance to appreciate it except maybe him, but he's still going to torment Matt McConaughey anyway. I just thought that was so awesome.
Yes, check that out. For those that don't know. And of course, we are talking to one Charlie Robinson here. Earlier, we were talking about his book, The Octopus of Global Control. And of course, your book is a very big book. It's not a very small book. It's actually, the cover art is wonderful, by the way. I do like that very much.
I stole it from, I should say borrowed it from the NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office. They have a logo that was the yellow octopus.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And it went on their spy satellite, and the text above it said, "Nothing is beyond our reach." And I thought, oh, that is such an evil octopus. I'm going to take that, change the coloring a little bit, and then do an American flag backdrop. So that's where that, if people are wondering why the cartoonish octopus, that's where it comes from. NRO dash 39 is that spy satellite that went up a couple years ago, and and we don't even know what that spy satellite's doing, except apparently nothing is beyond their reach now.
The website is theoctopusofglobalcontrol.com. If you are interested in reading Charlie's book, you can go there. And of course, you can go to amazon.com and easily find this one. And again, it's a fantastic book. It's well written. I liked it. I thought it's entertaining. Well, what I did read, by the way, I didn't get a chance to go through everything.
No, it's a big one. Nobody's gone through all of it. I mean, I have, but I think maybe it might be just a couple of us. It's one that you can sort of break off, take a piece at a time. Actually, you know what it's really good for is if there's people in your life that are sort of unsure about this, you've gone as far as you can go with them. You've sort of told them as much as you could go without coming across as the crazy guy in your family. It tends to work as a good book where you could say, "Hey, you should read this. Check this out," and it because the humor kind of keeps them going, and you can let me be the bad guy, I guess, is sort of my point.
Humor is key, my friend. That's what really gets over.
Yeah, you gotta have some fun with it, even though these are dark topics. You have to sort of laugh at some of the, just the insanity of it all. And
no choice.
And I think that like Jon Stewart did that with The Daily Show. He let you hang in there through this crazy story because he was able to do it in a humorous way that would keep you hanging in there, and you'd laugh, but at the same time you'd realize, hey, this is like a real story. This is like a real event. Maybe something I should pay attention to. So. Yeah,
Charlie,
Christmas presents for people. Right?
That's true. That's a good idea for those that want to give someone a nice gift.
Holiday present.
Holiday present. That's right.
Sorry. I don't want to offend it or me too anybody.
That's true. And of course, it is open for the gay and lesbian community as well. They can get the book. You're not against them. You're on board with them.
I am on board with them.
No hate in your heart.
Nope. they do their thing and I'll do mine, and we're all
And we're
good.
good. No doubt.
Yep.
And of course, that is the Octopus of Global Control. Charlie, I do want to thank you so much for being on the program. It's been fun. Did you have fun, Charlie?
I had a lot of fun. This is great. Honestly, this is like the best way for me to spend a Saturday night, just
Oh,
talking about some crazy stuff with some cool people. So
I
thank you for thinking of me. I appreciate it, and I'll come
clockwise.
back anytime.
Yes, sir. Clockwise, and we will do this again on the other side, Charlie. Mahalo, my friend.
Thank you, man.
All right, take care. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. That was the one and only Charlie Robinson. Great guy, right? Did you enjoy that? I hope you did. And of course, we do have another guest to bring on here in a little bit, and we will take a break. But before I do want to remind you that if you do like this program, that you can get an additional hour of the program, and sometimes even two, eventually, over at patreon.com/Michael Decon. That's patreon.com/Michael Decon. If you do enjoy this program, prove it. Prove it with your wallet. Show me that you like the program. And for those that have proven that, all of them have loved the content that has been released on Patreon. They really do enjoy it, and they want more. As soon as more people do join, you'll see and hear a lot more of me. Oh, yes. Indeed. Now, I'm looking at the clock, and it is that time to go on a little break. And when I return, V is here live and in the building. Don't go anywhere, folks. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the program, boys and girls. And I do apologize for taking so long there. And of course, we are joined by a very special soul right now, the one and only V. How's it going, my friend?
Oh, it's going well. It's going.
Yes, you are a little bit under the weather, I believe.
Just a little bit, but I'm hanging in there.
Yes, I'm glad you are here, my friend. And again, I did want to apologize to you on the air about not making this happen last week.
Well, confirmation times is different with everybody, so we all have our ways that we do things.
That's right. And I dropped the ball, boys and girls, and I apologize. And of course, you are simply going by the name of V. Is that correct?
Well, V is more of a mental, just like the movie
Sure.
V for Vendetta.
Right.
Anybody can be V. Right now, I just happen to be V.
You just happen to be V right now. And this could change, right?
Oh, I would definitely love to pass the responsibility on to someone else when I find the person that's able to do that.
Yes. And of course, let's tell the listeners out there a little bit about yourself, my friend.
Well, I am someone who is referred to as a targeted individual. I have been targeted by the NSA, possibly some other covert groups within the shadow government. I am constantly hacked, constantly harassed in various ways. I receive what is called voice to skull, even though that is the old terminology. It's really synthetic telepathy done via satellite and other means, which means I'm connected to an AI or several that talk nonstop. This is the simulated schizophrenia. I was to be an on-show shooter or mass killer for the NSA, except for I broke the program.
Really?
Unlike others that you've heard of, like Myron May or Aaron Alexis.
Now that's pretty daunting, my friend. And how did you come to realize that you were part of some program?
Well, it took a lot of discovery and research. Started to experience a lot of weird things in life. Firstly, my communications became tapped. Again, the computer tampering, internet tampering, and then all of a sudden, I feel as though that my neighbor is watching me. And then the voices come through the walls, or at least what I perceived at the time, that the voices are coming through the wall. Through an investigation, I found out that wasn't the case. I would leave my home and drive out in the middle of a park, and there they are, still talking. So I did a lot of research.
Right.
It's like, why am I going through this? Okay, I'm a student of psychology. I've been ever since I could read, pretty much my whole life, and I started to look more into the schizophrenia. None of the markers were there for me. I was too old.
Yeah, how old were you by? Yeah,
schizophrenia. Well, I was 28 at the time.
Okay, 28. Okay,
it started for me. Schizophrenia usually comes around early teens.
Early, yes.
In the rarest situations, absolute rarest, in 20s, early 21, 22. So entirely too old. The sounds were not random. These were constant streams of voices that were either commanding, insulting, or just narrating what I'm doing, which is a formula to push someone over the edge to get them to do things like mass murder, suicide. So I started looking into the science and I found out how everything happened. And it was very consistent with all of the patents, U.S. military patents. There's a mind control science manual leaked by a man named Will Fuller, who was an NSA operative that suddenly vanished. Everything was consistent with his whistleblower document, and so forth. So I've been whistleblowing about this ever since I found out.
Yes, you've been going hard for many years now, and of course you are a man of many hats and many talents. It seems like at one time you were not only doing the radio show, you were doing some sort of TV show, correct?
Oh, well, yes. I started out in radio. A funny story. I was basically the guy in the with the sign, "The world is going to end," on the street corner. I was basically that guy.
Were you?
For a while. Well, I was standing in front of 7-Elevens and other gas stations, passing out flyers and packets of information of my research. Yeah, I spent hundreds of dollars doing that sort of
yeah.
thing. And then
Okay.
I got the attention of a guy who wanted to hear my whole story. I told him my story. Say, "Hey, how would you like to tell your story on the radio?" I was like, "Wow, I would love to. How's that possible?" I was like, "Well, I have a show, and it's here in town, and I would love to interview." He ended up interviewing me twice, and then I was offered my own radio show.
Nice. Okay.
That was the beginning of the Red Pill Hardcore radio show.
Yes, for those that don't know, that is the name of your show. And you cover a lot of topics yourself on your program.
Well, the targeting is not just one way a person can get targeted. There are various ways a person can be targeted. But as I did my show sometime later, I believe around 2 years later, someone, I've made a lot of connections within the independent media industry, obviously, and I was offered my own show with TLB TV, or the Liberty Beacon Television Network. This is the biggest online internet media that's independent. So I started my show with them, the Red Pill Hardcore TV show. And yeah, since then I have done many of other shows, like Family Case Files TV show, where I help get people who have lost family members or in family court for this reason and that reason, with medical kidnap, or their children are being trafficked.
That's wild stuff.
Yes, I have a lawyer that works with me, or a legal consultant of some sort with me on every show with the guest, and we try to help them get their children back or their parents, their elderly parents back. And then my TV show Targeted, which just narrowed down on the targeted individual interviews themselves. And that is the evolution of that, because I say a person's targeted more than one way is if these people want to screw with your life, the best way to do it is to attack your resources, your job, whatever, uh, inheritance, these things like that. So if they're going to attack your inheritance, they'll attack your family, taking away your children, and medically kidnapping your parents, whether they're sound of mind or not, sound of health or not. They'll make a case for it. There's a lot of fraudulent things. Again, computer hacking, a lot of fraud that way.
Yeah, electronic harassment for sure.
Yes, and so again, there are various means, whether it's gang stalking, if you're a person who leaves the home a lot. See, I originally was not someone who left my home a lot. I was able to live within my apartment, and I had a store directly across the street, 50 feet away from me. So I didn't experience the gang stalking so much because I didn't leave home. So they had to go through the drastic measures of synthetic telepathy, audio harassment.
I see. And when this was happening to you, V, did you think you were going crazy?
Again, originally, yes. I looked at every mental disorder that there is, and nothing is as mathematical as what I was going through. I can literally put everything that's said into a chart and document an algorithm, essentially. Thought, response, emotion, response, as far as the voices. Mathematical. There's always a response for a certain thought, in other words, which is not something that you're going to hear from someone that has a mental illness. That is the artificial intelligence. So I tried to make it to where I can rationalize it as my own mental illness. I couldn't do it in any way, shape, or form, especially when the research that I did showed all the evidence of covert technology being used.
Yes, and by the way, I do have to ask you, did you ever figure out why exactly you were being targeted to begin with?
Because I'm a black man.
Just because you're a black
highly
man?
Intelligent and didn't have to depend on anyone, so I had my freedom. These are all things the system does not like. I'm ex-military, so I got harassed unendingly. Oh, come back and work for us. Come back and work for us. We'll treat you better this time. No, thank you. I will never sign a contract with the government ever again.
Well, what exactly happened in your experience, if you don't mind me asking? I feel like this is an important aspect of the story, your experience with the military. I'm guessing now, or assuming obviously, that this wasn't the greatest experience for you.
No, it was not. My military employment was not as long as it was supposed to be. So I got screwed with. I got tampered with. I was sick the entire time I was there. Vaccine, shot after shot. I was experimented on.
Really?
Drastically.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't have a healthy day being in service of the U.S. Army. It didn't happen. I was constantly getting stress fractures, pushed way over my limits. There were certain people there put on me to make sure that my life was a living hell. And I kind of look back on what my father told me, because I come from a military family.
I see.
And he told me never join the military because of what he went through. My father ended up being a sort of civil rights activist. When the people underneath him, an all black crew, anyone who worked underneath him, all got accused of some crime or another, and my father exonerated them, got them off, okay?
Right.
Proved them innocent. The government didn't like that because he especially retired shortly thereafter in disgust.
Interesting.
So I think this it was a little bit of revenge on me also. In retrospect, thinking about it, because targeting becomes generational. I did lose contact with my father after some years, just to find out that he had an untimely death.
Oh, no.
I'll say that much.
I see.
And I do believe it was also related to, again, the government wanting some get back. And something that the government doesn't like, the military doesn't like, is for you to get out, okay, and live a normal life.
And be outspoken, I'm sure.
Well, take a look at all the troops coming back from Iraq. They can't get jobs. They can't get places to live. They're made to look crazy, and then they're put on terrorist watch lists.
Yeah, there's a few people, by the way, that I do know that did serve time. They do come back a little bit wired differently. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, yes. It takes a lot to be a killer.
Right.
And then figuring out that you did it for the wrong reasons, it will mess you up. There's no war that the United States is doing that is just. It's all corporate sponsored New World Order imperialism. They can fake all this democracy talk all they like. I'm not buying it. And people, I would say by and large, today are not buying it anymore. So, another reason why they've had to put this monarch mind control grid up with this technology. So, these people don't like you leaving the service unless it's in a body bag. There's a lot of technology that's being used abroad that they don't want civilians to know about. That's for sure. So outside of my TV series, each shows that I've done, I also have a documentary series, and I would love for everyone to check it out. I call it the 5th of November, the movie documentaries. You can find the unedited version on Facebook. I believe it's facebook.com/targeted individuals documentaries. I go through the technology as much as as much on layman terms as I can while providing the documented evidence. I do have 3 more documentaries coming out. They'll be done in October, so I hope everyone will watch and spread it to everyone that they know. I'm probably the only person, well, one of 2 people that have figured out the technology from start to finish, how it works.
Very nice. And of course, I'm sorry to go back in time here and get a little too personal with you. I don't mean to be too intrusive here, but in terms of your father, when was the last time you spoke to him? Has it been that long?
I would say 2008.
Oh, it's been a while then.
And I found out in 2010 that he had passed. 2011, excuse me.
Oh, okay. I see. Well, I apologize for that. Sorry to hear that.
That's okay.
And what about Mom?
Oh, well, Mother is fine.
Mother's good.
Yes.
Okay, nothing wrong there with the mom.
Well,
Uh-oh.
there's history.
Okay. Well, okay, here we
Well,
go.
there is the history again, and part of it is because of my father and who he is, especially being African American.
Was your
He's
dad
highly intelligent.
a bit of a hard ass on you?
Oh yeah, completely.
I would have to imagine,
He was
yes.
a jet plane engineer. So I mean, highly intelligent. We're all highly intelligent in my family.
Yes.
Again, a red flag to be targeted by the government. So my mother had a previous marriage in which she, well, let's just say the husband started acting weird.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Didn't want to be touched. Always thought somebody was following him. Always seemed like someone was talking to him. My mother couldn't figure out what was going on. And then all of a sudden, there's a letter left saying, I'm out of here. I'm moving to Alaska." And he disappears. Well, then enters in my father, the master sergeant.
The master.
And yes, and then here I am. So there was, the government does a lot of social engineering, especially for their military men. There's a lot of high-ranking military men that have had their wives social engineered to be with them.
Interesting.
My parents were no exclusion,
I see.
no exception. I've heard a lot of women say, "Well, my targeting has stopped since I've gotten with this man, with this colonel, with this, whoever." And I put it to them, you do realize that you're being trafficked covertly. Only you know it. Only you and I know this. And you're willing to go along with it. Yes, it's making my life a lot easier, they would tell me. Okay. As long as she feels you have a choice in it, there's nothing I can do about it.
And there's a lot of secrecy, by the way.
Oh, yes.
A lot of secrecy. A lot of people don't realize that about military families and personal ties with other officers and other people in various branches. Let's just leave it at that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, usually. My father, to me, was an open book. He answered any questions that I had for him. For example, I had the presence of mind noticing the transition of our skies when I was 6 years old. And I asked my dad, "What are those long streaks of clouds in the sky? What is that? That's not normal. It's not natural." As a 6-year-old, my father told me, "Those are chemtrails, son."
Your dad knew.
It's like, oh, yeah. I asked him, "What is it for?" He said, "Weather control."
And coming from him, that's
as a
interesting.
6-year-old, he told me this. It wasn't until later on in my adult life, that's not all it's used for. It's also used for mind control. Yeah.
Mind control.
Absolutely.
Chemtrails.
You want to know how it works?
How does that work?
Oh, boy. How much longer we have in the show?
We got enough time. We're good.
Okay.
I think everyone's interested now. Well, they were already, but now even more enthralled.
Okay, so you have these nanoparticulates being sprayed on us. Okay,
Right.
you have the aluminum, strontium, barium, titanium, etc. Okay, nanoparticulates. When you have a metal, let's say aluminum, in the form that you normally see it in, like a beer can or something like that, it has different properties than this nano form. That's the same with every substance. So, like aluminum can conduct electricity. When you have aluminum in a powder form, it becomes highly explosive. That's why it's put into ammunition. So you have different properties for different metals and materials when you take it from its macro form to its nano form. So you have all these nano metals being sprayed on us. And don't be fooled. They say it stays up in the sky. Listen, what goes up must come down. Okay? We breathe in all these nano materials. It enters in our bloodstream and it breaks the blood brain barrier. Now, the blood brain barrier is broken, so you can't filter out all these things. It starts to lace your neural pathways. Now, I want people to understand how small a nanomaterials are.
Yeah.
It's so small. It's smaller than bacteria. It's smaller than all of that. Okay, it's so small. I believe you can fit. I'm trying to remember the numbers here. The length of or the width of a single hair, you can fit millions of nano particulates to line up to go across a single width of your hair. The stuff is so small, you're not going to see it. So this smart dust, essentially what it is, smart dust laces our neural pathways in our brains. Now, what has the government been trying to do for so long? They're trying to chip us, right?
That's right.
Trying to put these microchips in us. And we as a society have said, no, we don't want to do that. Mark of the beast and all that stuff. The loss of our rights and privacy. Well, they found a way to chip us anyways. Because once this smart dust has coated all of our brains, the brain then has become a transceiver, the RFID transceiver. The brain is already a computer. Okay, now you have all the frequency technology around us. The microwaves, the Wi-Fi,
Yes.
radio, ELF. Okay, so now you have a science. There's two main sciences here that you've got to look into. There's particle resonance and interferometry. These are the two main things. There are other things that go along with this, but these are two things. So you have particle resonance, which means you have a particle here and then a particle there. You hit them with the same frequency and they will resonate the same information. Now, this goes deeper into quantum entanglement. You can switch information to one particle to another instantaneously. Distance does not matter. Distance isn't a factor. One particle can be on one side of the galaxy and the other one. they're hit with the same frequency, one can teleport information to the other. It's magnetic. Scalar. These are terminologies to look up. Scalar. This is scalar energy. Now, the government is getting away with the mind control, the synthetic telepathy, because of the interferometry. Basically, the interferometry is when you have two signals converge with a background of frequencies. And when these two frequencies converge at a target, that target is the only thing that can receive the coded information. So you have a background of frequency, HARP. HARP blankets the entire planet. You have a signal coming from a microwave tower, then you have a signal coming from a satellite. It's just noise or whatever to anybody else. If you have any kind of scanners or anything like that, you're not going to be able to decode what's really going on. Only the target device or the target person can receive the information. What is happening there when when two frequencies converge, you have a created field. You have destructive and a creative field. It's all sciencey. So I'm going to try to back down and make this more layman here. So
I think some listeners might need that help.
Well, well, so there is this untraceable signal that you can get because your brain, guess what? All of our brains have phone numbers to them that the government has. They want to dial you up and give you voices, they'll do it. Each one of our brains have been mapped. That's why they want Wi-Fi everywhere. That's why they want the cell phones everywhere.
And just look at Elon Musk as well. He's getting there.
Well, it's past that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So everything, all the stuff, and it's real-time mind reading. It's not just putting voices in your head. It's synthetic telepathy. So our brains, there's, you know how you see the dissections of the human brain? And you can just basically see the map as it goes along. All of that has been mapped, each and every one of us. When a part of your head lights up when you think dog or a cat, there's a certain part of your brain that puts off a signal.
Right.
It's called brain waves for a reason. So they have, their magical mind reading telecommunications. Now, I've been whistleblowing about this for quite some time. My next documentary is going to be explaining all of this.
You'll be
a lot
diving
better
into
than I
this.
can over radio.
Well, don't worry. I know. Yes. You can't explain all of it here, but I'm following along. I know exactly what you are referring to. And by the way, Peace and Bliss in the chat room says, what's in his brain that the government wants? Why is he special? And that comes from Peace and Bliss in the chat room.
Compliance. They don't want me to have my freedom. They want me to be a 9-to-5 wage slave that doesn't know anything. Problem is, I'm completely independent and I know all their secrets.
Yes, and they offered you a job to clarify, correct?
Oh, the years of, come back and work for us. You're a genius. Come back and work for us. I figured out just about everything that they've ever done and everything they're going to do. I know when they get so exposed, and the people are going to be so angry, they're going to turn that dial. They're going to hit everybody on the planet with the harp. They're going to do a mass extinction. That's why they have all these underground bases, the My Labs. It's not just for child trafficking, child pedophile rings. That's where the elites are going to go when they think the masses are too frenzied to control. A movie I would like for everyone to watch, just to get what I'm talking about into perspective. I believe it's The Kingsman, Secret Service.
Yes.
I believe it came out in like 2014 or something like that.
Yeah, good movie.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically that is the possibility right now. But with the intelligence, yes, they want to steal everything from people too. People have you have heard of people in your lifetime complain, "Oh, I had an idea about something, and 6 months later, I saw it on TV."
You see it on TV.
An idea that they had for an invention. The elites steal inventions all the time. Why? To keep them rich and to keep you poor. They do it all the time. So I hope I answered your.
I think you did. Peace and bliss in the chat room there.
Okay.
Yes, and by the way, going back to mom and dad and early childhood development for you, were they at all religious by any chance?
They were religious, but I was raised secular.
Ah, okay. Interesting. It doesn't really happen too often.
I've had the freedom of choice of everything in my life.
That's a good thing then. It's better not to be painted with just one brush, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you've always been open-minded. I believe mom and dad always open-minded, correct?
Absolutely.
And you, no kids, correct? No wife, no kids?
Well, being a target
happened?
individual has made that impossible.
Ah, so did you have a relationship with a woman for a couple years, and perhaps this sort of thing came to fruition at a greater detail for you much later on, and did something happen? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, they'll use love intelligence. NSA and the other agencies, all the way down to the police, they'll use something called love intelligence. If they see that someone's into you online, for example, I've had long distance relationships online, and then find out they're not talking to me anymore.
Was this on Tinder?
I've literally come to. It's literally gotten to like a day or two before I'm supposed to move across the country to be with them. It's like boom, contact gone.
By the way, is this over Facebook? Is this over Tinder? Is this over Grindr? That's a joke.
Skype.
Okay.
Skype.
Skype. Okay.
I try not to do so much social media, but Skype, phone, email, that stuff is cut off.
Okay.
In my personal life, of course, you got to date.
Sure.
And you don't just have one hook, one line in the water. So when I find myself getting closer to one, they disappear. Or they get very weird, very strange all of a sudden. And so that sort of thing, when I've gotten more into media, is I start finding out, oh, well, this is their COINTELPRO. a lot of women who show interest in me, even as fans, and talk to me and whatever, they instantly get flooded with other guys to be interested in them and
I
to
see. Yes.
sort of take their attention off of me. Even me as a public speaker, a public figure. Again, I've got my fan base.
That's like high school, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I call these cowards, these creeps, little junior high school B-words.
Yeah, you've been getting harassed,
all they
man.
do are they play mind games, little junior high school prepubescent girl games. So that is essentially your intelligence agencies, period. But this is what they do to keep you isolated. They'll send somebody behind your back, if you've got a business deal going, and say, oh, this person is a terrorist, for example. Don't do any business with that person. See, I have a lot of loyal people that will report back to me what was said, what was done. They weren't counting on any of this. In most cases, nobody ever does report back. But again, being a public figure, and so many people have gone through the same stuff, have reported back to me, and has confirmed everything I'm telling you.
That's weird. That you
Can you believe your tax dollars are going to this?
Yeah, that's what I'm also another concern is that we're paying these people and this is what they're doing on the job.
Yeah. That's what they're doing on the job.
The name of the guest is V for those in the chat room. Star Mountain, I believe, just asked, what is the name of this guest? And he simply goes by V.
Yep, just V.
Just V. Lots of heavy material here tonight, Charlie. I was going to call you Charlie. V.
I'm not the enemy.
Well, Charlie was the first guest, by the way.
Okay.
I don't know why I said Charlie, but yes, very, very interesting stuff here, and I still can't help but feel that this sort of harassment is something that is not going to be ending anytime soon for you.
Well, a lot of it has, because I have become a public figure. A lot of it has. I choose not to pick up on a lot of things and continue in a certain way because I have dedicated myself to my media.
I see.
And yeah. I intend on having justice, okay? There's going to be hell to pay for everything that has been done to me. I'm not going to pretend like I'm some saint or some angel. There's going to be heavy punishment.
You're not going to go quietly into the night.
Not going to like it.
Yes, you're not going to go quietly into the night, in other words.
Correct.
And by the way, we are joined by another soul here. We do have a caller for you, V. Let's go to the caller before they hang up. Are you there, caller?
Yes, I'm here. It's just I'm having a hard time hearing, but I'll do my best.
What's going on?
Hello, V.
Hello.
Oh. What's going on? Not much. I'm just hanging out in my room listening to your show.
Right on.
Okay. I'm fascinated by your show tonight. And
yeah.
Okay, now I'm getting stage fright nervous. And
Don't worry.
Forgot everything I was going to ask.
We're all friends here. We're all friends here. Don't worry.
I hate when that happens. Frickin' Deep State is deleting my head, so I don't know what to ask because it might be something important.
They're deleting your memory.
Yeah. Oh, that sucks. I hate that.
That's done all the time.
Oh, let's see. Do I have notes? Yes, kind of, sort of, maybe. Okay. Do you see what is going on right now with I'm sure you see what is going on. There is a lot of divisiveness going on in the country. A lot of people driving angst and hate because they don't like someone or like their view or really don't want people to. Oh, crap. They don't want people to be able to get along and work things out, come to a mutual satisfactory resolve. Go ahead and talk, and maybe I'll go ahead and remember what it is I wanted to ask.
Well, I'm glad you said that. Something the Russians did, and anyone can look this up. It's called the Russian woodpecker. The Russians put out this frequency. They had this antenna array that went over the North Pole and blanketed the United States. It was a signal to placate the Americans because Russia did not want to go to war with the warmongers in America. Okay. Now, this was studied. This psychotronic signal, this terminology that they used back then, psychotronic. Psychotronics is anything, any technology that can interface with the mind of any biological creature. So this was a psychotronic signal they used. The CIA figured this out. The DOD figured this out.
It's a generated energy.
And so Americans are all agitated now because of, yes, the cell towers, the cell phones, the Wi-Fi. We are bombarded with frequencies. HARP does the same thing. Yes. Not to mention that we're fed human flesh, the baby fetuses, fetal cells, okay? It's in Pepsi and all the other stuff. So we become naturally aggressive towards one another. We have a subliminal cannibalism that goes
That's
along
what I wanted to ask about. What is being generated is being picked up by neurological the nodes in the brain are receptive to energy, and they pick up on that stuff and process it, and we kind of decide which way we're going to. Oh, man, this is getting weird. I'm sorry.
Well, the brain resonates with outside frequencies. Our brain is supposed to resonate at a 7.84 ELF. That's a Schumann resonance. That's our natural resonance. We're out of sync with that because our brains are resonating with the technology that's around us.
Energy wave going out at a different frequency to kind of screw that up. Is from what I understand.
That's why none of us feel connected with each other. We're not connected with the earth and the frequency that we're supposed to be on.
Right.
We've all been divided and conquered. We all live in shoeboxes now. Nobody knows who their neighbor is anymore. There's no community watch. There's no civilian militia like there's supposed to be.
I knew who my friends were in a certain community, and to my heartbreak, I got turned on, and that's all I'm going to say. Anybody listening probably knows what I'm talking about, but there was one entity that came in and generated a lot of divisiveness, turned people kind of against each other, and eventually I got bad. Well, no, I'm not going to say that. Anyway, yes, I understand that kind of energy because I have experienced it. I'm sorry, I'm going to shut up now.
Well, especially women, women are very emotional creatures. 70% of target individuals are women, in fact.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
again, this goes into the human trafficking, to the honeypots, to just about anything you can think of. Because, well, the world is mostly motivated by a man's desire for a woman. I'll put it that way.
Of course. Yeah. I can agree.
Money doesn't run the planet. It's a man's desire for a woman. Absolutely.
I can tell you why if you want to know.
I think we all know, especially when
I
a
think we
man's
know.
wallet is always very, very lucrative.
Because the anima versus the animus is the creative energy.
Amazing.
When you take the two energies, the anima female, the animus male, they need each other to survive.
Right. That's true.
And there is, again, like you were saying, V, there is a divisiveness that has been forcing the separation, but just not recently. This has been going on for centuries.
Oh, yes. Social engineering.
Increasing,
That's what it's all about.
increasing, and it's hitting a peak right now. We're about to pop the zit. Okay?
You know, and
Right on.
that's what it
Thank you for the
might
call, by the
take.
way, Star. Appreciate it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Mike.
Yes,
I
thank
didn't
you.
mean to. I didn't mean to get so
No, it's okay.
bubbly graphic, but
That's all
okay.
right.
I'm going to hang up so
Yes.
I can listen. Just give me a second so I can turn my sound up. Okay?
Take care.
Okay.
And that was Star. Great call, by the way. And if anybody wants to call in, that number is 760-332-8724. You see it up on the screen there. Go ahead and give us a call if you'd like. Don't be afraid. It's just me and the V here having a great discussion here. I like talking to you, by the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yes, you are fun to talk to. And we'll get into some more fun right now. Completely different topic here, but I did want to get your thoughts and opinions on one Jeffrey Epstein. And of course, if you are an individual who believes in every conspiracy that is thrown out there, V.
Well, I'm a conspiracy expert, not a conspiracy theorist.
Correct.
I believe what I can research, and that typically leads me with the science. I'm self-proclaimed
Sometimes you have to
psychological
be.
warfare expert.
You have to be.
I think I say that since I broke the mind control on me that was going to send me off to be a mass shooter. So I think I could say that. But as far as Epstein's concerned,
Yeah.
well, I mean, what do you want to know?
I want to know if you believe the official narrative, or do you believe that something else could have happened to one Jeffrey Epstein? Many do believe and have gone on to say that he was transferred to some sort of military location or jail, and some people say that he really was offed.
Well, I have to ask, does it really matter?
Not really. All the acts already have been committed, in my opinion. The crimes have been dealt with and done. The people got paid, and everyone's smiling now, and, got to clean it up. Business as usual, in my opinion.
Well, that's my point, because whether he's dead or not, it doesn't matter. His money's protected. They had to kill him, or at least fake kill him off, so that no witnesses could be paid, no one can sue, no one can press charges, nobody can get a piece of that money. Not only that, they had to kill him, so there's no evidence, or they don't have to investigate the sex ring, all that stuff that's going on. I'm right now on the verge of trying to bust open a pedophile ring myself.
That's what I read. Tell us about that.
my communications have been broken up so much with interviewing this certain individual who has been raped by her ex-lover, been raped by the police. The ex-lover has gotten off on the rape, has custody of the children which he's molesting, and molesting so badly there's bruises and prolapsed anuses.
Jeez.
The
visuals. The visuals.
The multimillionaire father keeps getting him out of trouble. But he's been caught with over 700 pictures of nude children.
Those aren't his. Those are
most
are
of
friends.
which are missing.
That's a friend's laptop. It's not his.
Well, I don't know if it was desktop or laptop, but he had been found out by her with all these images of the
CP
child pornography.
Yeah, the CP.
Yeah,
that's greasy.
So I've been trying to nail this interview. I've gotten only part of it, and I'm just getting electronically blocked, or the sound is degraded, or there's some sort of electronic harassment.
I see.
Which goes to show you that the NSA is protecting these child pornography rings. Listen, there's no one that views more child pornography than the NSA. Not just because they're catching it, but they're distributing it.
That's how they do their fishing on the black market, the dark web, deep web.
And that's how they get a lot of their employees too. Oh, you knock on the door. Yeah, child porn on your computer. But wait, you're a great hacker. So how about you either come work with us or you go to jail? Everyone chooses to work for the NSA.
Yeah, at that point, you have no choice.
Absolutely.
Either you'll die mysteriously or they'll blackmail you.
I've almost got the setup once myself.
Oh my. Do tell.
Well, just one day, just found some weird stuff on my computer, and my home was being circled by black SUVs.
Oh no.
And just like, oh yeah, really? All right, well, hard drive, microwave.
Yeah, once you get the black SUVs, yes, the black SUVs, once you get their attention, that's when you know you are in trouble.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I've had many people threatened to not talk to me. I've had guests say, "Whoa, some people showed up in a black SUV and told me not to talk to you, not to do my interview with you." And of course, these people always say, "Screw you. We're going to do the interview anyways."
Yeah.
Which is great. I love it. A lot of my militia brothers, same thing. Like flies. They describe it to me as like flies over a carcass when you start seeing them swarm. But that's the more aggressive way that they let you know. Usually when they're just trying to subliminally plant the paranoia in you, it's usually white vans. And they'll do that. I know. Actually, the one time that I can time period in my life where I thought about, I'm seeing a lot of white vehicles following me lately.
Yeah,
one day I just went out 3:00 in the morning, just for a little drive, and because there's a white van across the street at the store, which is a gas station, and as soon as I drove off, it started following me. Okay, well, this is going to be fun. So I went to a neighborhood that I usually don't go into. It followed me for every turn. 3 o'clock in the morning. I got on the straightaway, punched the gas, just it went as fast as my van could go. Turned around at the end of the street and came back up, and drove by this van as it came by my van, and then shortly thereafter, I see it trying to turn around. But the next day, I went and I noticed something because I had to pick up a friend a little bit further down the area from which I lived, and that's where the courthouse was. And where the courthouse was connected to a private mental institution owned by, well, operating with the courthouse. All white vans.
No,
Again,
that
these
is
people were
creepy.
trying to condition me, trying to watch me, and for the time that I was going to break from the harassment and do my killings like I was supposed to. You know how all the false flag shootings, false flag events, how there's always a drill beforehand?
There always seems to be some sort of weird drill, including on 9/11.
Exactly. So they have to have some sort of handling situation, somebody on the ground. So that's when I busted that. And once I busted that little scenario, they stopped following me altogether.
By the way, my friend, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we are joined yet again by another caller. Let's quickly take this call here. Caller, what's going on? Did you have a question?
Hi, thank you for having me tonight. Craig, how you doing tonight?
Craig?
Hello?
Did you say Craig?
Hi, how you guys doing tonight? This is fantastic.
Right on, my friend. Did you have a...
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I had a question.
Do your thing.
If you just be quiet for a minute.
Go ahead.
Question for your guest is, hey, you've been cleaning your anus out a little bit because that's the proper use for clean mind and good living. But we have to all remind ourselves to clean the anal wall.
He's true.
Very, very good.
He's not lying.
So I want to actually... Yeah, I want to ask your guest that. And also, who's your moderator in your damn chat room? Because are you pissed off with people, cutting off people in your goddamn chat just because they disagree with people?
He's angry. This is what we get sometimes. That's why I love taking calls.
Clean your
we
anus,
wait for
you punk.
There we go. We wait for these kind of calls.
Grow your hair.
You know
that?
I love
you can
it.
tell he cleans his anus by
I think
taking his head in and out of it.
I think he bleaches his anus. It's pretty amazing. But yes, I think
that's fun.
Oh, he left. I didn't even.
I know his cleaning technique.
Yeah, he ran off like a coward. Wow.
Oh, you have fun callers. I like that.
Me too. I love the trolls, by the way. They are my favorite. But, they run off, though, as soon as I respond.
I haven't had that. That was actually the first troll for me. I've never had a troll call any of my shows.
Really? You haven't been on the internet long enough.
Oh, I've been there for a while. I've been doing this for a good while, my friend. Oh, wow.
Yes, it got very dirty really quickly, and speaking of dirtiness, we'll get back into the whole dirtiness in a moment here. I interrupted your story with that call, and I apologize.
Well, I mean, when you put out real information and is to challenge what people know, you've got to get the intellectuals engaged. You have a message like this coming out there, and all someone like that can think about is what he's able to say in your chat room. That reeks of COINTELPRO agent, this information or misinformation agent.
Oh, he calls in all the time, by the way. Not all the time, but he's a repeat
your
caller.
Information, your guest information is less important than what he's got to say?
Right. He's a silly boy, and he's a very bored and sad individual, but I do love him. He's still a troll that you gotta love. And I do love him. The trolls are the best part of the program. Sometimes he calls in and he starts cussing at me, and then he hangs up, and it's a rinse and repeat cycle, and I like it personally. Makes the show fun.
Actually, I do get trolls, but I don't handle them. That's for my staff, and that is done online.
Yeah.
So I would love to. I've had some individuals in the past I've had to expose. I've had to expose this moron in the TI community who's selling a helmet with magnets on it.
Oh no!
For $800 to $900 a piece to stop government harassment. I've had to explain the science as to why that's not real. I've had scientists come onto my show to explain why that's not real. And he's been bad-mouthing me across the internet ever since because I destroyed his little business, his little fraudulent business.
Well, it's not against the law. Yes. Well, it's not against the law to profit off of others' ignorances. That's what I say here all the time.
But this is the lowest scum of the earth. You've got someone trying to profit off of people who are already penniless.
That's how I feel about. That's how I feel about Sylvia.
Who are already targeted.
Yes, and V. That's how I feel about Sylvia Brown. If you recall that woman, long ago, the psychic who would ruin a lot of people's lives even further. People like that, they're the ones who really cause havoc. And even like pastors and those in the religious circles who molest these kids and take advantage, even of their flock too. These all sorts of pastors that do that sort of thing too.
Well, there are some people out there being used as real mediums. The government, through synthetic telepathy, will have you believe. Some people believe that they are hearing the voice of God or hearing the voices of aliens. And they would talk through them and they would get attention. These what I call false prophets. They're created by the government. There's actually, anybody can look this up, can research this. There is a guy who could, quote unquote, summon UFOs.
I know. I know who you're talking about now.
Now, it was proven that he could on actual mainstream news radio coverage. UFO came into the sky. Problem with that is you have the Project Bluebeam trickery. Now, with his synthetic telepathy, sure, the government can read his mind. Say, okay, he thinks he's controlling us. Let's put a UFO up there. Boom. It's one way to fool the masses.
Yes, you are referring to Prophet Yahweh, right?
Oh, I don't remember the guy's name.
I think that was his. Yeah, I think that's what he was going by. His name is Ramon Watkins. I think that was his name.
Yes, a large African-American man.
Correct. From Memphis.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I remember that guy.
But it was proven that every time he thought of it, it happened. Listen, the real aliens out there, they don't care about us. They're watching us, see what we're going to do with the little technology that they gave us. And right now, I'm pretty sure they're either laughing at us or thinking it's a damn shame.
Probably a damn shame.
So that trickery, that just explain that situation. That's why the UFOs came out whenever he summoned them or thought of them. Project Bluebeam, anybody can look it up. Leaked a long time ago. So that combined with the synthetic telepathy, there's a lot of Scooby-Doo stuff that the NSA does. Get people to think their homes are haunted, so they move, so they can get somebody else that they want into that property. And the same thing with the voices through the walls. Oh, this place is haunted. That sort of thing. So they've taken this technology and they have done every corrupt thing that you can think of. They're little psychopathic children with toys.
Yes. And of course, going back to 5G and the whole chemtrails and all that sort of amazing subject matter, sure you are also familiar with the Wi-Fi, the seeing through the walls with Wi-Fi signals. That's another thing that does concern me when we do talk about 5G. Those sort of elements that are also being used to spy on normal people like me and you. And furthermore, you have these whistleblowers out there, Edward Snowden, who really did reveal a lot of these sort of aspects that go on within the government. And many of these branches are just hidden in secrecy from the public. It's incredible, really. And I was just thinking about all these things as you were talking, and I didn't want to interrupt you, my friend.
Well, first off, Edward Snowden is entirely overglorified. Listen, ever since the phone was invented, you remember those little switchboards? Police
Sure.
and the police-like officials have been tapping phones ever since we've had telephones.
And this conversation, by the way, on Skype.
All my conversations are listened to.
Definitely.
My audience is much bigger than I would think. The reason why I'm even able to communicate is because I have my own counter surveillance, and when they mess with my communications, well, it's all gonna backfire. They might as well put the 357 in their mouth and pull the trigger for all the stuff that I've got on them. But anyhow, so that Snowden's overglorified. Anybody who has any common sense knows that your email's being watched, or
Definitely.
anything that is in the hands of a corporation. At least it's not going to be private. AOL is that Illuminati triangle there. Well, don't you know? They're telling you.
That's right. And even your cell
The
phone.
program's all around.
Yeah, we already submitted our rights to privacy as soon as you sign up with your cell phone provider. Basically, you sign on that dotted line. You already forfeit all your information. Everything on your cell phone is recorded, essentially. That's the most amazing part.
Absolutely. So, yes, Snowden overglorified.
Yeah, you don't think much of them.
Real information, I cover this in my documentaries as well about the 5G and everything that it does. Now, along with the nanoparticulates that is sprayed on us, that metallicizes our atmosphere, which allows them to do everything from hard light hologram construction through interferometry to actually being able to edit a person's DNA. Nanoparticulates, when it interacts with genetic cellular material and hit with 5G, there's a protein reaction that can be constructive or destructive to DNA. I cover this in
your documentary. Yes. And of course, where can people go to find your material, V?
My documentaries, which is the most important work that I've done. Uh, if you want to see the real unedited version, because YouTube was a real pain in the butt with us over this, you can just go to Facebook, which has the unedited versions. Again, it's www.facebook.com/targeted individuals documentaries, all one word, of course. And that has all my documentaries. I have 6 documentaries on there. That is too much information. I've got, again, 3 more documentaries to put up to complete the information. And
that's a good problem to have.
Well,
yeah.
Every October, I put up 3 documentaries. So 3 more is coming.
Nice.
This October. So be on the lookout for that.
Very cool. Well, once you do, I will definitely share those links on my website for people too.
And yes, I mean, I still have my TV show, the Red Pill Hardcore TV show, but I'm also back into radio as well. I'm with the Republic Broadcast Network.
Very cool. And we are running out of time here, but before I do, just a quick question in terms of the Democratic debate that just went down, your thoughts and opinions on that, if you do have any opinions by any chance.
Don't get distracted. Look at the real issues. Look at what you can see and touch. Because that's the Tea Party that you guys get to watch on television. You don't get to see what's really going on in the shadow government or the deep state. Ignore everything you see on television. That's the sleight of hand. That's the puppet show. I don't have to watch it to know what was said. I know it's a bunch of BS.
Right. Essentially. Yeah, it's all a charade. It's a political masquerade, and it's always been that way for a long time. Unfortunately.
Well, punch a hole through the puppet and you might find a hand bleeding.
Love that. Did you have fun, V?
Absolutely. Yes, you have a great program. And great callers.
Yeah, it was great. Next time we'll talk about Michael Jackson and R. Kelly and all kinds of fun topics, my friend.
I'll talk about anything that you want to talk about.
All right, thank you. It was an honor and pleasure to talk to you, my friend. We'll do this again in the near future, V.
All right, sounds good.
All right, my friend. Take care.
You too.
All right, bye-bye. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen, the man simply known as V. Great guest, a great guy. Love talking to him. I hope all of you enjoyed that as much as I did. I want to thank both of my guests who appeared tonight, Charlie Robinson, and of course, V. Would like to also thank you guys in the chat room, and of course, those great callers. Loved hearing Star, loved hearing the troll of the program. Love that very much. And I also want to remind all of you out there, if you enjoy the program and want to help fund the program, which I would really want all of you out there to do so, there is a donation button on the right-hand side of your screen over at michaeldecon.com. Any amount is good. However, if you want extra bonus content for your good hard-earned money, that is one option. PayPal, but however, I would like to turn your attention to patreon.com/Michael Decon. That is where you can donate just $5 for extra content. That's if you like the program. If you are a hardcore listener, that is. Not telling you you should. I'll always deliver free content just for you out there every Saturday night. You know that by now. I'll always give you a free show here. This will remain free forever. Boss Man says, do you accept food stamps? No, I don't. I wouldn't be able to use those. Not where I'm at. You would probably get run off out here. especially in certain locations. Yeah, the shekos. Yeah, the shekos, definitely send those in. Bobby Blades, can I pay in weed? Yeah, you can also do that. And of course, I think Boss Man, I believe it's his birthday. Everyone say happy birthday to Boss Man. I'm sure he needs the happy messages. And of course, stay safe, everyone, no matter where you are on this island Earth. I'm Michael Decon. And with that said, the world is a mysterious place, and life itself is a mystery. Until next time, good night, everybody.